and welcome to episode 43 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I am joined as always by Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week we looked at our first batch of games from issue 21 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were spammed by Panther, phased by Flash Gordon, and beguiled by Bard's Tale. This week we conclude our look at the games in January 1987, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. So Graham, tell us what we have going on this month.
In this enormous garden centre coffee shop cake selection of an episode, we get to the chopper and type our flight commands and scoot around the skies with Super Huey 2, grab our combat pants and practice our best squat leaps with the crappy Soldier 1 unsequel, Captured, and ready our space cannons and head off to teach the Polon some manners, if we can find any, in the suspiciously enemyless Bulldog. We also decry the isometric Pac-Man-like insanity and control stupidity of the dubious Crystal Castles, debate the rationale for yet another early arcade conversion with the classic Donkey Kong, before taking a deep breath and gasping in abject horror at the blocky skid mark on the C64 underpants known as Bazooka Bill. If that rancid-looking cheese and tomato panini and chips hasn't crushed your appetite, we also grab our Cosmo Police uniform and explore some mysterious caves in the confusing Japanese arcade-inspired Galivan. Cry foul at the weird demands of Rael the Perverse and fight for uranium-235 in the heavily overplotted nuclear embargo, before finally grabbing our crucifixes, chomping on a garlic, and heading off to Transylvania for a 3-part gory-ish text adventure in the 15-rated Dracula. Some of the games in this episode stink worse than a vampire's arse crack, AD. We are going to need industrial strength eye bleach after this.
Swish, sweet, awesome. I'm sure all of that is going to be amazing. Having played all these games, I know we are in for a barrel of fun.
Yeah, it's a delicious pre-packed sandwich full of awesome ingredients.
There is a cornucopia of delights for us to get through.
Unfortunately, it's out of date by 20 years.
And the mayonnaise has gone south.
Yeah, the mayonnaise has grown legs and walked off and had kids. Anyway, we'll figure that out as we go.
We will, yeah. So let's crack into these. We've got 9, haven't we? 9 games. Let's have a go. So what's up first? Now this is it's not Sizzler, but it is the highest joint highest rated game this month. There were no Sizzlers or anything this month. It tells you everything, doesn't it? But this is Super Huey 2. Now, Graham, I know you were having problems. Did you manage to get this running?
I did not.
You did not?
No, I didn't get to play it. I got to watch a YouTube video of it, which is not the same. So if you played it, I would suggest that you just take, because I've got some commentary on what I saw, which I can provide, but I haven't got a great deal of experience with the game. So
no, well, if you played Super Huey, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't. I don't.
Yeah, well,
like simulators.
just cut that in.
Okay. Well, it looked all right, and it looked like the previous one in the YouTube. Is that the kind of thing? Okay, right.
It is. It's more of the same. So this is the follow up to this is Paul Norman's follow up to Super Huey, and it's Super Huey 2. It's got a huge long intro sequence, which you can't skip, or I couldn't. So I don't know if you can.
He does like his intros, doesn't he, Paul Norman?
He does. He loves his cinematic intros as Mr. Norman. Maybe he's related to Barry Norman.
Maybe.
It runs in the family, this filmic tradition.
And why not?
Get out. Seriously, get out.
It took me ages to remember what he said as a catchphrase. Goodness. I need to have a rest after that. My brain's just gone like a hard drive almost errored trying to figure out, I'm just going to have a nap.
So Super Huey 2. Okay, so it's got a huge intro. It's basically just this 3D effect flying over this like a rocky desert landscape with these sprite scaling stuff going on. It's quite nice. It's fast, and then every now and again a word will pop up. Those words being Super, then Huey, and then lots of 2s. And it tells us we're playing Super Huey 2. Then you get a list of essentially what then comes up is you just get a load of options for missions to play through. There are 6 missions this time. There were 3 in the original, I believe. And the missions this time we have Renegade, Gulf of Terror, Brushfire, Oil Fire, Arctic Rescue, and Bermuda Triangle. Okay, so that's our options. So, and it doesn't. I'm going to blame my hand. It doesn't really matter which one you pick because you'll just fly around for ages, unable to find anything.
Those 6 things you mentioned there are also the exact track listing from that guy that sings about Bermuda Triangles. I'm going to go. I'm off back to sleep.
This joke is it's as old as that mayonnaise.
I'm off back to sleep. I can't remember his name. Do you know? It's been one of those days.
Barry Manilow.
That's it. Right, I'm going to cut that in where you go, Barry Manilow. No, I'm not laugh. I'm just going to cut really abruptly.
You cannot.
You're going to go Barry Manilow and laugh, and then we'll never talk about it again.
With the powers of modern editing, we can make ourselves look funny.
Yes, those 6 tracks are just like ones off a Barry Manilow album. And communication.
Oh, Super Huey 2.
End of line.
Neutralize the electro scan. So there's no real intro to these levels. Well, that's not fair, actually. You kind of get a bit of intro with some... there's some speech that kind of tells you what you're supposed to do. I couldn't quite make it out. It was garbled and muffled. Maybe it was supposed to be atmospheric, but there's atmospheric and then there's non-understandable. There's a fine line between it, and I found it hard to understand. Even with headphones on, I couldn't really pick out what it was saying. So this kind of follows the same kind of control scheme, but I couldn't quite figure out. There was loads of, it's those 3-letter codes again, but this time there's more. It's 6-letter codes or 6 words. So you're at target, and course, and all this kind of stuff. But also use the keyboard. I couldn't. I tried finding a manual online just to see if I could make it easy for myself, but the only manual I could find online was for the DOS version, which didn't work because it didn't have any of that. The DOS version seemed like it had proper controls. So then I watched a YouTube video, which is probably the same one you watched, and that just seemed to go on for nowhere. So if that's the one I watched, it's just, it's so graphically, technically, it's pretty clever, I suppose. You go flying around and the 3D effect is quite okay. You can fly over the sea. There's stuff to do. But it's just, I just found myself, there's no indication I found of where the hell I was supposed to go. And no matter what mission I tried, I couldn't. I don't know. I just flew around. I got got the plane off the ground. Well, sorry, the helicopter. I got it off the ground. I started flying. I moved forward. I turned left and right a bit. I flew for ages. I let it go in, trying to think about was something going to happen. Am I going to get some indicator? I couldn't find anything. So for me, it was just a lot of empty area just to fly around. And reading in the notes, it seems like it is a big piece of area, but it's just left me bewildered. I just didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm just flying around in a Super Huey for no good cause. Every now and again, one thing did happen. Another helicopter appeared at one point and blew me up immediately. That was after flying for like 5 minutes.
It's a depressing thought, really, isn't it? That's
it really
peak,
was, yeah.
The peak excitement of the game is you being killed by another helicopter. Wow.
Yeah. 5 minutes of nothing, then a burst of excitement. It's like, be in bed.
To be fair, that's what I got from the YouTube video. I just thought it just looked like an endless scenery explorer, like a horizon line system.
Yeah, that's all it is. So, and it just doesn't feel finished. That's my main issue with this. I looked around for playthroughs. I read comments. I tried doing what the comments were telling me, but just nothing happened. I just crashed again. And there's no when you crash, it's just a sound, and then you're back at the base and start again. There's no anything. You just press. It says, "Oh, don't ever press F1." I think it's F1 because that just resets it. Or left shift. And if you do press left shift, it just takes you back to the the options of finding the thing. And that's just it.
Odd key.
Yeah. The weird thing is as well. Yeah. Why not run stop?
Yeah, or escape or whatever that equivalent was. Yeah, run stop. I think.
Yeah. Run stop. Yeah. The other weird thing is as well is that when it tells you to load in the mission, tells you to change disk. There's just a random quote from Airplane at the bottom, which is there's no loading or unloading in the white zone.
I got that far. That's as far as I got when I tried to load it. That was that screen. I saw that.
Yeah, that's the loading screen. It's on that for a while, I will say.
Yeah, forever for me.
Yeah. There's no failed mission. You don't get any kind of failure. You don't get anything. It's just it felt unfinished to me. It feels like the front and back end and all the interstitial bits, the bit that join it all together and tell you what to do, are just not there. There's technically a clever game here because obviously we know Paul Norman is a clever guy and he does clever things and he's technically very adept. But there needs to be someone coming and goes, look, you need a bit of player affordance in this. You need to tell people what the hell to do. Give them a direction to fly and tell them something apart from this garbled speech at the beginning. It's just impenetrable. I just found it impenetrable and in the end dull again. I think that's what we said about the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no real, progression here. This was just another what? It is a progression from Super Huey to Super Huey 2, but it's just exemplified the dullness for me. And I just wish I could have got on with it because I kind of like Paul Norman stuff. I think he's quite clever, but I just didn't get on with this. I think we're waiting for Gunship, aren't we?
Yeah. Really? To be fair, that kind of comes along and sort of wipes the flow with this a bit. And I mean, I say I didn't play it, so I can't comment on its playability, although it didn't look supremely playable. The only comment I have really is I can only comment on the visuals looked okay. I like that there was a part in the YouTube video I watched where it went over the ocean, and the ocean was actually animated in a way, so it wasn't just a blue block. That was interesting, quite a nice idea. And the only other thing was the sound effects of the helicopter sounded really good. That could have just been the YouTube video I was watching, but the actual sounds of the helicopter, because they use it's not just, an annoying sound. It actually has not just the rotor blades spinning, but kind of the engine drone at the same time.
Yes.
That sounded pretty good. Other than that, I have nothing to comment further because I didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't look very exciting to me.
The technical aspects around it, it's all good. It just needed a finish. It needed a polish. It needed someone to come in and go, right, you need this, you need a better title screen, get rid of that long intro, it's dull. That's what it really needed. And I think just a final polish and pass that last 5% of the game design of the, telling the player what to do. And this could have been really, really good. Even a tutorial mode would have helped.
Yeah, it was a bit
just to sort of go, right,
stuff, wasn't it, there at the beginning?
Telling you what to do. But Zapped liked it, and I imagine if you had the manual with it, it's going to imperceptibly improve it because you kind of know what you're doing, and it might tell you things that you couldn't. But I couldn't find one, so I can, and I looked everywhere. I looked absolutely everywhere to try and figure out what I was doing.
Not easy to find. And you're right. I mean, I read the Zapped review, and they weren't blazing about it. One of the reviewers kind of said it takes a while to get into, and it's okay when it sort of kicks off and there's a bit of action, but it takes a while. The general consensus was that it was in some ways it wasn't as good as the first one, and in some ways it was slightly better. It was really a non-committal review, which is kind of exactly how I feel about this. So, I simulations and that part arcade. What do they even call this? Is it a simulation that's an arcade, or an arcade that's a simulation?
Fight sim, I guess. But,
the speech was a bit silly, wasn't it? It just, at least it had, ocean that was animated. I was quite pleased to see that.
It did, yeah, which we can say. So, if you like Super Hugh, you're probably going to like this. But if you don't, it's not going to.
No.
It's not going to rotor your tailpipe.
No. But at least you'll be able to say you flew the UH-2X, and that's something that I've got that on a certificate on the wall. But actually,
well, I've got it's on my CV.
It is.
It is. I know. It's what got me the job.
It's like when you actually got into the cockpit of a Super Huey and typed in the word "fly," it didn't take off, did it? So,
no,
that's not how you fly a helicopter. You just ask it. Take off, damn you! Take off. I've seen Firefox, so maybe I should be thinking in Russian.
Super Huey too.
Okay,
I don't know what accent that was.
It wasn't Russian, and it wasn't even in Russian.
True. We all know that's how you speak Russian. Da.
Yes. Niet.
Whatever. Niet. Yeah. Niet to Super Huey 2. That's not one we like. Yeah. So there we go. Let's move on. Shame you couldn't play it because I think you'd probably find it the same as me.
Yeah, it looked boring, and I'm not into that. So I think I've dodged a bullet.
Yeah. So let's move on, and I'll talk about our next one as well. Shall I?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So what's next? Captured. I can't believe this is full price.
I can't believe it's
Which
not
is
butter.
Terrible name, for the butter substitute I bought the other day. Can't believe this is full price. That's what I said when I played this. So this is Captured. So this is the sequel in name to Soldier 1. Remember Soldier 1?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so Soldier 1 was that ropey beachhead knockoff that we had the other week.
That's not the review you want to hear, is it? If you first did. Imagine they said that about the first Star Wars. It's a ropey knockoff. Oh no, goodness me. No, it's not good, is it?
That's what it was. It was a ropey knockoff of Beachhead. So this is amazingly, in tradition of most sequels, it's worse than the first. So we didn't think that was possible. So the sequel to Soldier 1 sees our hero, Soldier 1, Mr. 1, captured, chloroformed, and imprisoned somewhere that mightily resembles an awful 2D platformer. That's what it looked like to me anyway.
Aye.
And when he wakes up, he has a note in his pocket, and it reads, "Find the security code to the door, but beware of the beasts." I'm often leaving notes like that around the house for my partner.
Beware of the beasts.
She's like, "What have you done?" It's like, beware of the beasts.
Chloroform her when she's in Tesco. She just wakes up in the shed. Why am I in here? Beware of the beasts. Let me out. No, it's dangerous.
No, beware the beasts.
Beware.
You got to find the security code to the door. It's open. That's the code. So anyway, what is it? It's a 2D. It's an awful 2D platformer. So what this is, as I have noted here, is screen after screen of stupid platforming that has become now, for me, it is the third in our trilogy of massively overjumping main characters.
Yep.
So we started off with Spiky Harold. We had our Hedgehog. We progressed to our Knight in Shining Armour and Camelot Warriors. And then we have this guy. Soldier 1, whose mighty leap, he has a mighty leap.
He does.
For no reason. That's completely uncontrollable and stupid.
Yeah.
There's very little on screen to avoid, and what is there is baffling. There's helicopters. You jump over helicopters. It's like, what,
Don't
what is
look
this?
for logic. Come on. Don't.
Well, I wouldn't call a helicopter a beast. Just saying. You know.
Yes.
But you jump over them. Yeah, exactly. But there's very little to avoid on the screen. But you will hit it due to the stupid jumping. Because there's no way to avoid this. The jumping is stupid. But there's also... Let's take a moment to reflect on the facing the screen jump.
Oh, God.
So you can jump up. So our hero can face left and he can face right, but it's not just a flick left and right. There are 3 frames of animation to turn him from left to right. One of them is him facing onto the screen looking like an action man. And when he jumps up, I don't know what he does. He
squats and thrusts.
I can't describe it. He just bounces upwards. He just thrusts upwards with a mighty squat.
He squat thrusts. I laughed out loud at that.
Yeah, why do you have to face the screen to do it?
I don't know. It reminds me of when you if you ever catch a dog having a poo, and they look at you and they're like terrified look in their eyes, like, don't look at me. It's a bit like that. I think it was weird. It kind of weirded me out.
It really weirded me out. I was like, I just found myself laughing at it, I noticed here, because he just jerks himself upwards.
I don't want to think about that.
No one does. This is risible. It's so out of place and time. I'm not sure what the thinking is. I mean, and the music and visuals are awful. Awful. Pa. It's just my final comment. It's just awful. Pa.
Awful.
That is craptured.
Craptured is really good, actually.
There you go.
Why didn't I think of that? I have nothing much further to add to what you've said. I agree with everything you've said. As soon as I saw that it was by the people that made Soldier 1, I was like, uh-oh, I have a funny feeling.
There was a tremendous disturbance in the force.
Stupid. It defies logic that someone can jump further angularly than they can upwards. There's a physics-related issue abound. I don't get it, and I don't want to get it. It was ridiculous, wasn't it? The enemies was just simply too hard to avoid unless you heroically leapt around. Level design was stupid, and there's nothing really redeemable about this game at all. The music, the music was, I put it, it's like a naff 8-bit John Carpenter meets synthwave, and they had a fight, and that's the result of the sound is that fight. It's wild. Yeah. It just goes off in really wild tangents. It's really odd. I don't get where you start with an idea, and then when you get to the point when you're looking at that, going, my idea, that is what you call fruition, right there. That's come to fruition. My idea's gone from concept to completion. Because at some point, and then someone would hopefully come along and go, that's really crap, that is. But clearly that phase of the development didn't happen. And so it ended up getting released. So there you go. By Acorn. Did I see that right? Was this released by somebody called Acorn? I don't think it's the
Possibly.
Acorn. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Maybe.
Grieve Graphics.
But they did release it for $9.95.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's a good price for this. It's just rubbish.
Crap, no.
No. If you like you say, craptured. If you got this for Christmas that year, you would be falling out with your relatives, wouldn't you? That's terrible. You're not going to get any fun out of that. So no, rubbish. Absolute craptured is a really good pun, and it's real. So avoid it. Don't play it. For God's sake, don't play it. We played it so you don't have to. And in this instance, it really is true.
Yeah, I felt myself craptured after it.
It's just so bad.
It was terrible, craptured. Yeah, there you go. Oh, I felt bad after that game. Did I feel better after the next one? I don't know. Let's find out in a moment. All right. So up next, Graham, tell us all about Bulldog.
Bulldog, a top-down shoot-'em-up of a sort. You are out to go and sort out the polons.
Pesky polons.
The polons are causing trouble, so we've sent War Rocket Ajax. Now we haven't, that's Flash Gordon. We've sent a War Rocket to sort them out, because that's what we do in the Earth. We just send out, attack ships. The idea of the game is that... And now this is actually... There's some interesting things about this game, all fun aside. So it's a top-down shooter, and in actuality in this, you've got to kind of shoot the scenery out of the... So it's a bit like the Warhawk style. It's a bit like that kind of thing. So you shoot the scenery out, and the more scenery you shoot, the more stuff your points and you're getting like that. You don't really get attacked by a lot of enemies in this. Your bullets, you do. You get attacked by bullets all over the shop. So it's a top-down shooter, and so it's bottom to top. You are presented a bit like Warhawk with kind of scenery to shoot, and there's a few games where you have to shoot this sort of scenery. So it's a little bit it's bas relief type graphics, scrolling slowly downwards. You're shooting up. Bullets don't go super quickly. Your spaceship design's not super big, so it's not as big as Warhawk. It feels a little bit smaller. And there's a bit of whiz-bangery around when you start the game. And the actual game surroundings, so there's the sort of title screen, the start screen, there's a little bit of... So that actually doesn't look terrible. So this game doesn't look terrible, at least initially. So you're scrolling. Now, there's not a lot of enemies in this, and I think we'll come to this in a minute. I don't think there's any, other than bullets that are shot from the kind of things in the scenery. So you can shoot those, and you shoot at them, and then obviously all of those things shoot. You also get power-ups in this, and there's also little tricks. So the scenery, the way it scrolled and the way it kind of interacted felt a little bit like Bounder in a way. So you were a bouncing ball, you were a spaceship shooting it out. So you can gather sort of extra speed, firepower, you collect bombs, which you can use. Some of the ones sort of reverse the way it scrolls, which is quite a nice touch. There's little sort of hints like that. And what you've got here is kind of a shoot 'em up that I think suffers from not having any real enemies to shoot in it as such, which means it just gets boring. So it's over as you play it more and more. And it's a bit easy because you haven't got any enemies really shooting at you. The bullets are quite easy to avoid generally. It's not like a bullet hell game. The most I think I had was about 6. So I'm sort of flying around, avoiding the few bullets that are shooting at me, shooting out the scenery. You do get to boss levels in this, so you get so far, then you get a boss, and the boss is actually just more scenery, but made into like a spaceship shape, which made me laugh a lot. So, but okay, you know what? It's a boss, and this is an interesting step for these sort of top-down shooters, because this has now got scenery you shoot out, no enemies, obviously, but you've now got power-ups, you've now got bosses. This is a step in the right direction for this kind of game. However, the animations are quite simple. I think it's missing its enemies and the bullet hell logic. So, and the graphics over time just repeat a lot. So eventually it becomes dull to look at, dull to play. It becomes uninspiring as you play it. And I think you've accurately described this as diminishing returns. So the returns diminish quickly in this. So it starts with quite a nice look, and you think, actually, there could be something to this. And then gradually, as with the colour in the game, the colour in your sort of feeling and play around it sort of drains away. And you're left with what is sadly quite dull. The music in it's okay. Ben Daglish at the helm. And that music for Bulldog must have been used in a million crack tros and demos. I mean, I can't think I could... Just Eaglesoft alone must have used that Bulldog music in loads and loads of their cracks way back in the day. The game itself is missing something, and I think that's probably enemies. If you take all the enemies out of Shoot 'em Up, what are you really shooting at? And just avoiding the bullets was too easy, so it became too simple, too repetitive, too boring. What a shame. I like kicking some pole on butt, but not like this. Not like this.
Not like this.
So that was Bulldog. It was a lot of bullshit, really, I suppose, in the end. The trouble is, I think there were little hints of what could have been in there, little ones. I'm not saying it's graphically amazing. There's just little bits of, if they'd have just thought about it for a minute longer and thought, actually, that's quite good, let's do a little bit more of that, they might have had something, but they didn't, so here we are. What about you?
I'm surprised you didn't go with Bulldog Egg.
I did think of that, but you know what? I don't want people to win with bingo, so I'm trying to be different.
That's true. I've said it now, so it's too late.
You've said it.
Oh,
damn it.
Line. There's a reason this feels like Bounder. You know where that is, don't you?
I'm guessing it's from the same people.
Yes, Andrew Green and Chris Shrigley. So it's bound. This is essentially a it's
Shooter Bounder.
Basically Bounder, but Shooter Bounder. Yeah, Shounder or
Shounder
or whatever. Shounder, Shounder, Shounder,
Chowder, Chowder. It's Chowder.
He said Chowder. Yeah, so it's a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up that feels like Bounder with shooting.
Yeah.
You slowly scroll up the level and shoot floor emplacements.
Yeah.
There are power-ups to pick up, extra live bombs, speed-ups, reverse scroll, which is weird, and so on. So it all feels a bit kind of puzzly and a bit weird and a bit odd, but it needs a bit more life to it. It needs enemies, exactly as you've noted, rather than just floor stuff to shoot, because it gets pretty repetitive pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And unlike Bounder, it's pretty easy to work your way through. It's nice to see an end-of-level boss, even if it is just more floor. made into a boss.
Yeah, it was just
weird.
It was weird, but it was an attempt.
It was weird. But you know what? And go with me on this sort of thing, but this felt like, it actually did feel like what they looked like, sort of 8-bit versions of the end bosses, especially the first boss in Ikaruga.
Yeah, I said there's hints, little.
So it's kind of like, it was almost like the same shape, just in 8-bit style, because it was that you could stuff where you had to shoot on different angles and sides and stuff. I'm not saying it looks like it or anything.
No, if you walk 20 miles from a Ikaruga arcade cabinet and squinted, it would look exactly like that.
It looks exactly like this, yeah. The graphics are okay in that bas relief style. The music's a decent Ben Daglish piece. It just feels like the scrolling from Bounder tied to a shooter. And this is the crux of it for me, with no real understanding of what makes a shooter enjoyable.
Yes. Well, no understanding of how to bolt the elements together to make it. You're right, yeah. Some of them are there, but not really used.
Why is there no enemies? I can't get over the fact there's no moving things to shoot. No waves, because I know why. It's because waves are hard to get right, and you got to plan them. And
they're hard to add to the Bounder engine.
yeah, probably. But Bounder had moving things. It had sprites coming in left and right. It had the the floaty bit at the very beginning. But so it could have done something, and I'm sure they could have done it. They're obviously clever programmers.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
But it just feels a bit empty, and it just feels a bit lacking in challenge, and it feels. It's weird because it feels like that. It's got that jaunty Bounder feel.
It does. Yeah.
I think that's down to the Ben Daglish music.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like a sort of sci-fi shoot 'em up. If that makes sense. It doesn't. It needed when we're gonna get somewhere in a few months we're gonna get Light Force.
Yeah.
And and I haven't played Light Force in a while, but my memories of Light Force are much more positive because that music felt sci-fi. It feels like a sci-fi shoot 'em up.
One of Rob Hubbard's best scores, that, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's why I think this is lacking. It's lacking the atmosphere of what it is. So it just feels like a jaunty little shooter, and it just lacks that atmosphere and enemies. It's all right. I think a tenner, 60%. I don't know. It's probably about right, but I think a tenner's too much for what is here. Considering I could get Warhawk for £2.
yeah. Tenner's a rip-off, really, for that.
I would be a bit disappointed if I'd gone, for this over Warhawk, and my mate's playing Warhawk for £2.
Yeah.
Or 5 versions of it on his 5 Commodore 64s and tellies, and just laughing in my face. I'd be like, oh, damn you with your 5 Commodore 64s and tellies. We call him Jimmy 5 tellies. I hated him. I hated that guy. He's always rubbing my nose in it 5 times.
Bloody 5 tellies.
Anyway, Bulldog, it's not great, is it? It's all right. It's just a bit. But it's probably one of the best ones we're going to play this week.
Which is really kind of tragic, isn't it? That's the tragedy.
It really is.
But hey ho, it's the tragedy.
Oh, hey ho, let's quickly go on. We've only got one game left before we get into our movie stuff, movie and TV. So let's move on to that, shall we? Moving on.
We ought to. Our last game this section, which is Crystal Castles. God, why are we getting a port of Crystal Castles in 1987? I couldn't agree more. I don't get it, but you know what? Let's just dive in.
Yeah, okay, so this is the seemingly second, or maybe the first port, I couldn't date them, of the 1983 arcade game from Atari. So this is Crystal Castles. You might have seen this in an arcade, back in the day. It was it's an isometric single-screen dot gobbler. I think it's where you play as Bentley Bear, who's been trapped in a witch's house and told to collect all the crystals from the 10 rooms in order to escape. Once again, I ask, what were they on? We see this with a lot of these plots. Was that plot slapped on for the sort of home releases, or was that the actual plot for the arcade game? What do you think?
I don't think they would have put that much plot into an arcade, I have to say. So
I don't. So when they released it home, they said, well, we need some kind of story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something definitely went down there.
Okay. Well, you're collecting crystals, man.
Yeah.
So the rooms themselves, they're not so much rooms. They're kind of like 3D Pac-Man mazes, because this borrows a lot from Pac-Man. It's Pac-Man just twisted into isometric view. But they have slopes and ridges and lifts and things that you can sort of go on. You go up, so you've got to navigate around these. There's a little bit of nice touches. I quite liked that when you go behind the scenery, you see a little sort of outline of There's a bear, tells you where you are. That's quite nice, quite forward thinking. It reminded me of like later some Mario games where you go behind things and you see the outline of Mario and other platformers. That's quite nice to see in a game this old. But it's there are some tunnels to navigate. There's levels, there's lifts. Each level is populated by different types of enemy. There's trees. There's what look like bobby bearings coming after you. There's these other things as well, which sort of eat the pills. So some of them will eat the pills, some of the enemies won't. So you can lose the bonus at the end if an enemy eats the last pill or the crystal or whatever it is. Some of them will eat them, and if you're while they're in the process of eating them, if you go through them, you can kill them. Otherwise, if you touch any enemy, it's one of your 3 lives lost. It's classic arcade logic. 3 lives, progress as far as you can, try and clear all the screens. Get harder and harder. It's just what it is. You can collect at one point. There's a magic hat which you can collect for invincibility for a short period of time. If you last too long on a level, berserk style, sort of bees will come and track you down, and that will happen. It's an okay conversion, I thought, of a not particularly great arcade game, because I was never a massive Crystal Castles fan.
No,
I always found it too twitchy and a bit problematic in controlling it. Now, so I remember this in the arcade game was trackball controlled, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
This was trackball controlled. And I think that in 1983, somebody at Atari had ordered a shitload of trackballs because we had this, we had Marble Madness, and I bet there's others. So they were like, what are we going to do with all these balls? I just put them in arcade machines. No, we need a joystick. Put them in arcade machines. So they just had loads of people trying to come up with games for trackballs. Somebody put an extra 0 on the order of balls that month.
Yeah, too many.
Because there's just too many, so they had an edict to go out
to replace his steering wheel with a trackball. It's like, how am I supposed to drive my car? Get in and drive.
And his wheels.
It's like spinning it really fast. How do I slow down? You can't. Oh,
idiots. Just roll it in the opposite direction. His seat was a trackball. I keep rolling back.
Oh, the toilets in Atari were just trackball toilets. You can't flush them. You have to just wind it as well on the little winder ball thing. Just keep doing it.
You have to roll it really quickly to sort of, just to get rid of the debris.
Yes. I don't think trackballs were hugely successful, were they, in arcade controllers?
No. I mean, they worked with Marble Madness to a degree, but this just felt...
What's the one where you're shooting the missile? Missile Command, that's trackball, isn't it?
Missile Command, there you go. There's another one. Yeah. There you go, see? I'm onto some in here.
Yeah.
Trackball Madness.
That'd be the title of the book about it.
Trackball Madness. Yeah. Oh dear! I reckon they just had a shitload. They found them in a warehouse somewhere.
Skip.
Yeah. What are all these balls? Put them in arcades. Nolan, you've gone mad. Nolan, no.
No, Nolan.
No, Nolan, no. This is. There's another version of this as well. Did you play the other version as well?
I didn't bother because I didn't like the first version.
Well, the other version weirdly draws the levels differently. It's very strange. They're both okay. I actually prefer the other one, but they're both twitchy, like the arcade original. It's just Crystal Castles. I mean, we've got another one coming up after the break. After the film and TV stuff. But I don't understand these late ports. It's like strange. It's like someone's gone and goes, oh yeah, what they want in 1987 is Crystal Castles. Like, are you mad?
Madness.
Who wants that? And who wants to pay a tenner for it?
No one.
Nobody wants to pay that. So did you get anything from this port of Crystal Castles?
No, I never liked the original. I've played the original. They've got the original arcade if you ever want to play it at the arcade club.
I played the original loads. I used to play it back then because it was in the one down Cleethorpes.
Yeah, and it's crap. I don't like it.
It is.
I just don't like it. And so the C64 version is just pointless because it's really hard to control the little Bentley bear with your joystick because he races around like a crackhead. So he's speeding around that Crystal Castle, like going bonkers. So it's almost impossible to avoid the enemies, really. I mean, when you leap, another heroic leap, you press the jump button on this and you fly.
Oh, yeah, he has got a massive leap, hasn't he?
Which is part of the logic of the game.
Well, I let him off because he was a bear, and bears are known for their heroic leaps.
Oh, I thought he was just called Bentley Bear. Is he actually a bear? I suppose it makes sense he would be.
I believe he's a bear, yeah.
Well, he probably is. It doesn't matter,
That'd
really.
be really weird if he wasn't. He looks like one.
Well, just because it's a woman that's talking. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I just found racing around like the crazy track. I mean, the way it drew it and the graphics looked like the arcade, so they look like the arcade. But it's the controls that the problem here, because there's no nuances. If digital inputs don't provide the nuance, they remove the nuance of this game, not such as there is one. which means you just, as soon as you touch the joystick, he's off like bloody Roadrunner at 900 mile an hour. Then this turbo charging down, and there's enemies in there that move slowly and kind of deliberately, and you've got no chance. This is, if you applied the same logic to Pac-Man, which is essentially just, if you put this top down, you'd be playing Pac-Man. It's the same logic. If you made Pac-Man insanely fast, it would be impossible to play because you would just hit the ghosts all the time if you turboed it across the screen. So the same logic applies here. It doesn't work. And because it doesn't work and it loses the nuance, it just means it's insanely difficult, unenjoyable, and dull, and just not interesting. It's just it's a pointless conversion. Now, we've talked about conversions of arcades that were ridiculously overpowered to try and do so, trying to cram Dragon's Lair into the Commodore 64. The converse of this is true. There's some arcades, just don't convert them, because either the controllers aren't suitable for the Commodore 64, or they were just crap to begin with. Just because it's in an arcade, you don't have to convert it. Don't feel you need to do that. Leave it in the arcade. It's 10 pence to go by now. No one cares. It's like bringing out Asteroids on the Commodore 64 right now. It would be stupid. So why would you do it? Why did they do it? I don't know. Crap. I don't like Crystal Castles. It's not a bad game in terms of its construction, but for a tenner, it's a rip-off. And there's no fun to be had. I think I got to level 3, maybe. That's more by luck than judgment. And I never, ever got the last little gem. Those stupid ghosts always got it, because you cannot navigate the little nuances of the track easily because it's so fast and you miss them all the time. So you're always missing the way in. Oh, don't everyone think about it. It's giving me an headache.
That mayonnaise has gone off again.
It's that bloody mayonnaise that's gone off. No, I just think, and in this day and age, Crystal Castles, I'm pretty sure you've got a queue of meth heads out there waiting to buy that, thinking it's something else. So
yeah, probably.
Which is probably why it's a tenner.
Sorely disappointed when they get that home.
Yeah, they will, because I'll tell you what. I mean, I didn't have this. I did have this on tape, and I'm trying to think. Was it a gift? How did I end up having Crystal Castles? I know I had the original of it. I don't know how I acquired that. I don't. So I don't know.
I can't help you with that.
No,
I don't want to help you with that.
I know, and I don't obviously have any of my Commodore 64 from then now. So thank God the curse has been passed on to someone else somewhere along the line, but I don't know when. Anyway,
yeah. Crystal Castles.
So it's Crystal Castles. What's the pun?
What's the pun
for Crystal Castles?
Crystal Cackle, Crystal Cack.
Crystal Cackles, yeah. Crapstill Castle.
Crapstill Cackle.
I don't know.
Crystal Crap.
Crystal Crappy.
I don't know. Crystal Crappy. Crappy Crass. Just crap.
Just crap. Just crap.
It's just...
Get the gems belt your bear and fuck off. It's
not, is it? It's a 1983 arcade game, and from 1983, it's probably all right. It's doing something different in 1983. But revisit this, go 4 years forward, and we're like, no, we don't want this now. No, we don't want this.
No,
we don't want it. So on that positive note, that we've got all these positive notions from these first batch of games, let's take a short break, shall we? And then we will come back with some stuff about TV and films from January 1987. So stick around.
Hearty thanks to our sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com, where you'll find bargain books, ebooks, and audiobooks. Let's hear a sample from his fabulous audiobook, The Case of the Notorious Roboticist, read by the wonderful Nikki Delgado.
You want to be human? Screw that. Star Trek's got a lot to answer for. You think I want to be pooping and whizzing and loving and lusting and getting old and falling over? Get me a bucket. Marot sniggered. Well, robots are limited by design to prevent you from appearing too human. We know Isadora breaks those rules, though. Not likely she'll give me a chip. No, I'm an 8-bit Commodore 64 in a 1024 cubic quantum world. Maybe I should chuck myself out the airlock for my final floating point calculations. Marotz chuckled and held up his vodka glass. See, now that was funny. Benson clinked glasses with him. They both sipped.
Brilliant, just brilliant. If you like what you hear, visit DavidHearnWriter.com to find out more.
Welcome back. Let's get into film and TV in January 1987. Wonder if it's going to be as interesting as it was with the music. Don't know. Let's have a look. What was going on then? So, in 1st of January, so New Year's Day. New Year's Day highlights on BBC One included the British television premiere of Local Hero. Yes, it is more famous for its soundtrack. Yes, this was the Burt Lancaster film, wasn't it? Where he goes to Scotland. Is it Burt Lancaster? It is, isn't it? I think.
Do you know, I've realised I've never seen the film Local Hero.
Have you not? I've heard of it. I'm sure it's Burt Lancaster. And this guy goes there and there's something about it. It's set in Scotland. It's supposed to be quite good. I do remember it being all right. I can't remember it for ages. There was also the classic film To Have and Have Not.
Oh, yes, the Bogey.
I don't know.
Humphrey
It didn't ring
Bogart.
any bells with me whatsoever. So, Local Hero is, yes, it's a Mark Knopfler soundtrack, isn't it? Yes.
It is.
We know that,
Yes, his first soundtrack. His debut soundtrack.
His first, huh?
Yes.
Well, check him out. Check him the hell out.
Yes.
Final track of the album, Going Home, is played before every home game of Newcastle United FC.
Yes, Matt Knopfler's home team.
Oh, right. Why is it played before?
I don't question the logic of the internet.
Why isn't it played after?
I don't know.
when they finish the game and they're going home.
Do you know which track it is, by the way? Do you know it? You'd know it if you heard it. Oh, it's the goes down 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 down. That one.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Can you see the recognition in my eyes?
I can, yeah. I can see. My version wasn't 100% great. I'll say that now.
Okay.
It's a little bit dowdy-dowy, but, you know.
So okay. Local Hero. To Have and Have Not was directed by Howard Hawks.
It was.
Yes, he did direct the original Thing from Another World. He did indeed.
Yes. Very
It's the one about the giant carrot, isn't it?
Essentially, yes, it is, but it's obviously massively influential on Mr. John Carpenter, no less.
It was, yes, because it would lead to the Thing, I guess.
Thing,
yeah.
yes.
So the chemistry between Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart was apparently unbelievable on set.
Yeah, they were properly stoned. So much so
Hot
that
stuff.
after that, they actually got together and got married.
Wow.
So, you know, they were acting so intently in that film, and the chemistry is so strong between them that they actually fell in love and got married. So it must have been pretty palatable.
Palatable?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the
palpable.
word you're looking for.
I mean, palpable.
I find chemistry most acceptable.
Yes. Well, that's
I
one way
find
of
it quite
looking at it.
palatable.
I think, yes.
Lovely on my tongue.
Both palatable and
I can taste
palpable.
it in the air.
Well, their chemistry doesn't taste of anything. They're no good. Get rid of that guy. He's some kind of chemistry love person. What's he doing here? Dr. Love, get away from me. So,
The lack of palatable chemistry is appalling between these two.
have you actually? So you haven't seen To Have and Have Not? As an aside.
It doesn't ring any bells. No,
it's-
I probably might have seen it at some point on a rainy afternoon back in the day when it was on telly or BBC Two or something. I don't know.
You can imagine what it's like, really, because it's, it's kind of, it's a noir-y kind of. Humphrey Bogart acts like Humphrey Bogart. He got criticised in this because he kind of acts a bit like he does in another film, and the story is a bit like, I'm not going to say the other film, but it's a bit like another film. But go and watch To Have and Have Not, because it's a bit of an old film classic, isn't it? And then what baffled me a little bit was that it was the television premiere. Because it came out like 1950 something, I think, or 45 or something. So, I don't know. Maybe they just took a while.
Well, I
to
reckon
get that.
So have we ever shown? Someone behind the scene. Have we ever shown this? No. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Just check the internet. It doesn't exist.
I wonder what they
Through
called the
Radio
sequel.
Times.
Because if it was To Have and Have Not, the sequel would be To Have Not and Have. I don't know. Anyway, you can
Well, it would
debate
be
that.
not to have, not to have and have.
Not To Have and Have. Yeah. The various sequels confuse the hell out of everybody. It's like, hang on, what's this one called? This is To Have and Don't Have. Yours is Do Have but Don't Do It. Ah,
Have not, and have to. That would be the sequel.
Anyway, directed by Howard Hawks, good stuff, and the acting was palatable and palpable. That's what I say.
I have to because not have.
Yes.
Right, there we go. That was that. But there you go. That's your New Year's Day highlights.
Honestly, people must have been out. People were drunk. To be fair, is that on New Year's
Well, they
Day?
were hungover.
Hungover. That's what I meant. Yeah. I'm getting all sorts of
probably didn't care
confusion
what they
today.
were
It's been a
watching.
long day.
You really are, yeah.
It's been a long day. My confusion
their
is palatable.
The drunkenness was palatable.
You could put it on pallets. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's another one for your bingo card.
Oh God.
2nd of January, Japanese-American animated series Thundercats debuts on BBC One.
Aye.
However, it puts it, only so much as the first season will be screened. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did they only ever screen one season?
Yeah. You know, it's something that bugs me a lot about, because I really like 80s action animation. So He-Man, Thundercats, all of them. I like them all. But often in the UK, we never got the full season or the full series. Very rare. So Ulysses 31 was never shown in its entirety here. Battle of the Planets, that was never shown in its entirety in the UK. Thundercats is another one. And so you had to seek these things out later. Obviously now, thanks to the internet and all that kind of magic, you can do that. But back then you never knew. So you only ever really saw about 10 episodes in the UK of any of these series.
Yeah.
Some of them they did.
Yeah,
Like Dogtanian, I think, went from start to finish, and I think Willy Fogg did. But
Well, Willy Fogg would be really weird if it didn't.
he just got to day 79.
He just stopped in like day 40. we got to India and there was no more world.
Well, do you know,
It just fell off.
I did watch that for a while, and then I don't ever remember seeing the end. And that's how I felt about Ulysses 31, and I hadn't seen the end of that. I've seen them all now. So I actually went on a bit of a campaign to find these various, because some of them are really hard to find. So things like Starfleet, which we've talked about before, but Starfleet and some of these animations and some of these shows from the late I say late 70s, but very early 80s to mid 80s, they were really hard to track down on the whole. Some of them less so now. And Thundercats was one of them up until, because obviously there was another version of Thundercats, a new updated version came out not that long ago. Well, I'd say that's probably 10 years ago now. But they updated it. So when that happened, obviously there was a bit of and Thundercats has been one of those brands that's always had kind of a consistency about it. It's always kind of, because it's a really strong brand with the sort of, the famous Thundercats logo and all of that. And I think that it's persisted in a way that some other brands of that time haven't. How often have you reached over to your shelf and picked up your Visionary Night of the Magical Light? I've still got a Thundercats keyring on my car keys to this day, and a Thundercats t-shirt as well. But then again, I am a big Thundercats fan. Anyway,
You are an honorary Thundercat, like I'm an honorary Goonie.
I am. I'm not sure what my name will be. Maybe you can pick it from the list we're going to go through in a minute. Just so you know, by the way, the Rado.
Radingo.
There was 4 seasons of the original. 4 seasons of Thundercats. They were all voiced by the same actors all the way through. Really famous voice actors, some of them. But if you say the names now, it wouldn't mean anything. So go on the YouTube, go on the internet, go and look them up, and you'll see, because a lot of them, they do, a lot of the people that do the voices for these do voices for many other cartoons, and also other series of things and voiceovers for stuff, but also in games. They will gradually creep into some games later down the line, of course. So, for example, the guy that does the voice of, I think it was either Lion-O or Panthro, I think it might be Lion-O, ended up doing one of the voices in Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. So you can go, you can Google that all day long. Anyway, that leads me to a game. Now, there are many, many wonderful characters in the Thundercats series. And what I've actually done is created a list of them. Some of them are real. Some of these are real, genuine characters from Thundercats, undeniable. Some of them, less so, shall we say. Some of them aren't real. So I'm just going to go through this list quickly, and you tell me whether you think they're real and you think they're not. And then at the end of that, I'll either tell you, or do you want to find out right away? We'll do it right away.
I'll not look, so I won't get it. I'll get a surprise. Go on, then.
So,
I've scrolled it up. Go on.
So we're just going to go through them. So, and do you want to say yay or nay straight away, or do you want me to wait to the end?
No, you won't remember.
No, I won't remember.
How many?
All right, it's quite a few, but we'll go through these quickly. So, because the idea is to go through the list quickly. So, Crispo.
That's a nay.
That is nay. Hey ho.
Nay.
It's the Dayglow.
Nay.
Okay, that's nay. Wheelbar. Rah.
No.
Snaggy.
Nay.
The Snaggy is a real one. Bengali.
Hang on, stop. Snaggy is a real one.
Snaggy's real, yeah. Bengali.
Oh, God. Nay.
That's real. Claudus.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
I want it to be.
It's correct.
Hey.
Jagara.
Yes.
Yes. Jagger.
Yes.
Lion-O.
Yes.
Lynx-O.
No.
That's the real one.
No.
There is a Lynx-O. There is.
No.
Panthro.
Yes.
That's real, obviously. Pumra.
No.
Yes, it's correct. There is a Pumra. Remember, Thundercats purr. Pumra pursues. That's his catchphrase. Snarf.
Yes.
Okay, yes, that's a real one. Laura.
No. No.
Tigra.
Yes.
Yes. Balkins.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes, Balkins. They're actually a race of people who live on Third Earth. Tarbuts.
Yes.
Yes. And there is one called Jimmy. Sondora.
No.
That's the real one. Wizra.
Might as well be. Yeah.
Yep, true. Screw Loose.
No.
That's real. Cask.
God. Yes.
Yeah. Marmot.
No, that's a fish in it.
No, that's real. That's
God.
that's Mum Ra's evil dog. That's true. Groon.
Evil dog.
Yeah, Marmot. Yeah.
What was the next one?
Groon.
Yes.
Yes, true. Danger Groon. Yeah. Snowman.
Yes.
Yeah, and I felt they lacked adventure on that name, but that's a true one.
Yes. Could have been Snowman.
Yes,
Snowman Ra.
Dredger.
Yes.
Yes, that's a real one. Wonderb Ra.
Get off. Get out. No.
Doof.
No.
No, that's not real. Beef.
No.
No, there should have been one called Beef, I always think. Tara. Ra. Boom DA.
No.
Tomorrow.
God's sake. No.
And the final one is Panty Line O.
On that note. No. Oh,
See,
Jesus.
now you can have much fun with your friends picking out Ra's and O's for your characters.
I can.
And I think
very
maybe
pleased
if I
with
was
that.
going to pick one of those, I'm not sure I'd want to be a Balkin, but I think I might be Screw Loose or possibly Snowman just because it's the most boring Thundercat of all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
There's an entire wiki for every character, every person, everything throughout the whole series. I'll put the link in the show notes. Go and explore it at your leisure because you'll find some real classics in there. And when you get to the Robert Burbles, you'll have a good old laugh. So off you go.
Okay. Give me the link and I'll go have a look.
I will.
All right. So after that, after Thundercats, same day, we had the television premiere of Poltergeist on
Yeah.
BBC One.
Yeah.
It could very well have been heavily edited for UK TV. Everything else was back then.
Yeah,
So it
I
wouldn't
couldn't
surprise
remember
me.
if it was or it wasn't. Because BBC, I couldn't remember because ITV did a lot of hatchery, didn't they? But did BBC?
Probably. I think depends what time it was on. The peeling of the face is the bit I would
It
think.
was on at 2 p.m.
Definitely there.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I think it would have been post BBC, a proper post watershed. Yeah, it would have been 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, the only bit, like I said, that I would think would be edited would be the bit where sort of thing he gets a scratch on his face and then he claws his face off and it's just a skull. That would be the bit that would be gone.
Yeah.
But I like the special effects in this film. I watched it recently and thought they still stand up. Personally.
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't. It's better than the remake. Don't get me wrong. That's terrible beyond anything.
Oh, that remake angered me in many ways.
But the special effects don't. The sad thing is they don't hold up. The film itself is good because the premise is good and the acting is good in it. But the effects are a bit nowadays. They're a little bit. Well, yeah, they're not. Especially in ultra high definition and stuff. It's not. I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now that's a film that is famous for the quality of its effects, like the mind blowing. But you watch it and you think, wow, those special effects, even for the time, are quite staggering. Not in ultra high definition, they're not. That's clearly a model. Ruins everything. And those monkeys. Huh. So when I watched Poltergeist in UHD, I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to undefine you. Be undefined. Go back to 1080p or less. Because it doesn't help them old 80s films. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. But I really like Poltergeist.
It's a good film. Just now, modern technology isn't helping it.
Yeah. Oh well. 3rd of January, Carrot Confidential started. Ran from 1987 to 1989.
I don't remember a lot about the show.
Jasper Carrot? No, I don't remember much about Carrot Confidential. I think was it a stand-up one?
I think was it part stand-up, part sketches?
Part sketch.
Maybe,
I think it was. Yeah, it was one of those. I used to really like Jasper Carrot. I had records. I had 2 records of Jasper Carrot.
Oh, he's a really funny guy, and especially then, really good.
It's his sketch about the mole and getting arrested on Jersey.
Yeah,
and going to watch Birmingham play Manchester United. It just used to kill me. Just used to destroy me. And obviously his classic insurance claims.
Yeah,
they were brilliant.
He's a really good, talented stand-up comedian and of a type that was unusual at the time.
Because he wasn't particularly. There may be some bits and bobs, but he was surreal and funny, not relying on sort of outmoded sort of stuff that a lot of comedians did back then.
Well, precursor to Michael McIntyre's and people like that. He didn't stand there and tell jokes. He stood there and walked through situations and stories and sang some songs. Famously did the Mellow Yellow, didn't he? And stuff like that. No, really, really
kind of in the sort of Billy Connolly mold as well.
She just took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, very Billy Connolly. Very popular with my dad, my mum and dad, but certainly my dad at the time. He was a big fan of Dave Allen, Jasper Carrot, and Billy Connolly. Those 3 comedians kept him in one-liners for about 2.5 to 3 years at least.
Yep. 5th of January, The Growing Pains of Adrian Mole started.
Did you like Adrian Mole? Did you read the books? Did
Well,
you dig
no,
it?
I used to get obviously a bit of I had the same first name, didn't I? So people would be like, "Oh, it's Adrian Mole," and I suppose surname Mills. It was very.
I suppose, yeah.
So I got
a
but
distinct
I was never. I
lack of
read the
imagination.
books, and giggled at the measuring of the penis and everything bits and stuff like that.
And I think I read the very first one, which is the Growing Pains, the first one, isn't it? I think.
No, it's just a secret diary.
Oh, but yeah. Well, that's the one. I think I got it with a school. You remember when you used to do books for schools where you'd come back home, you'd tick the boxes, you'd put your £2.50 in or whatever they cost. I got loads of stuff from Roald Dahl that way, and this was one of the ones on the list, so I ended up getting that. I think.
Yeah. It was all right. I mean, the show was quite popular, wasn't it? It was as a adaptation of the books. They were all right.
Apparently, it totally missed me. I have to say, I just wasn't into it at all.
I think I watched them. Julie, what's her name?
Roberts.
She's in Educating Rita.
Oh yeah, Julia Roberts.
Julie Roberts. She was in it. She played his mum.
Not that Julie Roberts. Totally different Julie Roberts. Julie Robertson.
What's her name? She was in with. This is terrible podcasting.
No, I've been doing it all day. I've had it's like a proper part of my brain has been erased today. I think I've just been doing too much of the same thing over and over again.
The female comedian, Victoria
Wood.
Victoria Wood. She did loads of stuff with her. Julie.
Was
it not Julie Roberts?
Oh, Hello
What's
Wall. Julie. She was in.
You know the one I mean.
Educating Rita.
She played his mum. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and Shirley Valentine. She's in that.
Yes. Yeah. No, she's not in Shirley Valentine. That's someone completely different.
Oh, I don't know then. I know. In my mind, I can see what she sort of looks like, and now it's all gone wrong.
It'll come back to us somewhere.
See if you can remember before we get to the end.
Yeah. 6th of January, Inspector Morse, based on the books by Colin Dexter, debut on ITV with John Thor. I was shocked that these were this early. I just didn't realise they were going for so long.
Yeah. Do you know, I thought the same thing, because I don't remember even hearing of them till the 90s.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I don't know if I was getting them mixed up with something else, but...
When you go back to a lot of these are really new things. Things like Midsummer Murders and all those kind of things that came in on the back of it. All these, adaptations of crime books. There's just loads of them, and they go back ages. But ITV3 is just wall to wall this sort of stuff, isn't it?
Is Morse the one that's set in? Is it Oxford?
Oxford.
Yeah, I thought so. So I've never watched it. I've seen bits of it, but it's got John Thor in it. I'm sorry, but John Thor is only ever going to be Jack Regan for me from the Sweeney, and it will always be that way.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that's it.
As you notice there, Terry Strong as well.
Yeah, what a cast in the Sweeney,
Absolutely, Jack Regan and Terry Strong.
Terry Strong, two, hard-nosed Met cops doing crazy stuff. I mean, nowadays, of course, not very popular subject in the great scheme of things, but...
No, it's not, no.
But it was a good TV show of its time. Well, no, was it good? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I seem to remember liking it. I seem to remember liking the films as well, because they were quite violent.
They're very, very, very violent. But I'll tell you what, Morse was massively popular, wasn't it? I mean, I never... Yeah. My mum loved it. She was always she was glued to it. She never read the books, but she was really very into the TV show. She really liked John Thor because he was a bit of a... I say housewives. That's such a terrible thing nowadays, terminology-wise. He was just.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
At the time, he was kind of very popular amongst a certain demographic.
Yeah, he was he was a handsome chap for that that type of lady.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. 7th of January, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. So this was kind of the sort of pseudo unofficial whatever knock-on effect from the young ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Same writer, same director.
Yeah, written by Ben Elton. Yeah, produced by Paul Jackson. But it never really got. I found it was. I remember watching it at the time and thinking it was quite funny. But it seemed more in the mold of what was the. What was it? Oh, God damn it! This is terrible, isn't it?
Bottom.
Mr. Jolly lives next door.
Yes, it's very much like the comic strip, isn't it?
It was the characters in this were more like the characters in Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door, which was the comic strip.
Yes,
the best comic strip one.
Yes,
by a country mile, as far as I was concerned. And Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door is astonishingly funny.
And Bad News,
really yeah. Oh, yeah. The Bad News one was all right, but it wanted Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door. With Kill Nicholas Parsons. Yeah,
but all eminently quotable, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. Because it's essentially three of the characters from the young ones, isn't it? You have Mike, essentially, but you've got, Rick, Aid Edmondson.
It's Rick, Vivian, and Mike,
Yeah, Neil.
Oh, it's Neil, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, it's Rick, Vivian, and Neil.
But Neil's playing very different character. Neil, he's not even called Neil, is he? But the guy that plays Neil, he's playing a very different character.
Nigel Planer.
Nigel Planer's not playing a kind of hippie kind of character that he played in
And I think just the dynamics of the characters in that mold, I think people were going into it expecting young ones, and they got something completely different. They got more comic strip presents. I quite liked it, and I watched an episode for the podcast just to start, and I have to say, it just wasn't very funny. But then again, sometimes young ones wasn't wholesalely funny. It was of its time, and this just missed the mark. I don't know why.
They would be better when they came back with Bottom.
Yeah.
Because bottom is way better.
Well, they understood really what people liked, the parts about the relationship between Ade Edmondson's characters and Rick Mayall's characters.
Yeah, Rick Mayall.
Bless him, and rest in peace, Rick Mayall. But the way the sort of dynamic with the hitting each other a lot and the violence with each other, those are the things that people really responded to from the young ones. And that dynamic of them sort of hating each other but liking each other. And so they saw that, and that's exactly what Bottom became, is that, and more of it, and more power to them. The live version of that is hilarious, by the way.
And the fact that he was called Eddie Hitler.
Yeah, pushing the boat out a bit. I don't think Ben Elton's got anything to do with Bottom, has he? I don't think he did. I think it's written by...
No, I think they wrote it.
I was going to say.
I think it was Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson wrote it.
So I think by this point, I think Ben Elton's currency in that sort of market of comedy had started to tire a bit.
Well, he went off, didn't he? And I think around this time he started becoming
big author.
I think Ben Elton an author. Yes, I think he Stark was his first book.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
which I remember reading in lower sixth. So that would have been about 89. So that would have come out not long after this.
Yeah.
So, and that was paperback. So he's gone off and he's different. He's gone off into writing.
He's a very good writer, Ben Elton. Let's just want to say that because he is
exceptional. I mean, I used to like his stand-ups on Friday Night Live.
And don't forget also that Ben Elton also, I think he wrote or co-wrote episodes or was something to do with Blackadder as well. So there's...
Well, he came in and wrote... He started writing on Blackadder 2.
Oh, okay.
Which is when it changed, the character changed, because it was Rowan Atkinson and I think Richard Curtis, who wrote the first series.
Right.
And Blackadder's character is very different, isn't he? He's more Weasley and more...
Yeah.
Whereas in the second one, he became Blackadder as we know it, the wisecracking, that character. And so I think that's probably Ben Elton's effect on it.
Yeah, and Ben Elton knows how to introduce funny side characters, which is exactly what he did in the young ones, and that's why you get a lot of that in. So, Ploppy sort of Ploppy, and and all those other characters that you get in season 2 onwards from Blackadder. Because they, from that, I mean, I really like the first season, but like you say, it's nowhere near as funny as the follow ones, and you have the Bishop
of Bath and Wells,
the baby-eating Bishop of Bath and Wells. You're not getting children having a Blackadder, got to skip lunch.
Exactly. And Lord and Lady Whiteadder.
She's hilarious in that. She's a very funny lady.
Child. Swedes are a sin. Whatever it is. Carrots look a bit like
yes.
Anyway, Filthy Richard Catflip came out. Not a lot much more else happened for the rest of January.
Not in TV land,
I did look. Yeah. But on the 30th of January, just as a comment on what was going on in the world at the time in the UK, Yorkshire becomes the second ITV region to launch a job finder service, broadcasting for an hour after close down.
Yeah, which was broadcast on their Oracle network.
Yes, it was. It was the ITV version of CFAX, wasn't it?
Got a spare bit of bandwidth, mate. Stick some text down it. You can have a service. Let's call it Oracle. There you go. That's how it came about.
Call it Oracle, and let's get some jobs on there for people who don't have them. Because there was lots of them back in the 80s.
There was a lot of them back in the 80s, and most of them were up late at night by the look of it, or would need to be. But yeah.
Well, it would need to be, yeah. Well, you'd have to wait ages to apply, wouldn't you? You'd really have to note it down quickly, because Oracle changed pages quite fast.
Yeah, well, you could, especially with recording.
Pen and paper. Well, I guess you could, yeah. But, pausing it wasn't always great, was it? If you pause sometimes, got that little flicker, you'd be like, what's that? Oh, what?
Oh, no, I can't read it.
That'd be really bad.
I don't want to be a rat farmer. Why did I apply for that job?
I don't know. Why did you? That's it. That's your TV. Let's move on into films. We've only got 3 out this month. It's a bit of a dry month, this one. I do apologise, listeners. I'm very sorry. 2nd of January, though, was The Wraith.
Not a film I'd even seen or come across until this podcast. It looks pretty interesting.
Had you never you must have seen the cover. It was in every video store back in the 80s.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I say it. So I saw the case but I'd never actually watched it. And I think it's because it's about a killer car, isn't it? So I just kind of...
No. That's what I always thought. So I I've never watched this either for reasons it never enticed me to rent it out. However, I am going to go watch it because I've clicked that. I put in there a YouTube sort of commentary on it. And you should go watch that and make your own choice because I think it looks like a film you will get. It's not going to. Who cares? But if you watch it, you're like, okay, it just looks like a film that will be good, a good 80s cheeseball fest. But it's also the guy who did the car chases and stuff was the guy who did the stunts for things like Hooper and things like that.
Hooper.
So it's got some sort of technical chops behind it, and a lot of the actors went on to do other stuff. It actually looks like quite a good cheesy, and it's a weird film. It's like a ghost story.
Yeah. I sort of read the bit of internet movie database blurb. What weirded me out a little bit was that it was one of those videos.
Sherilyn Fenn in it.
It never rented out. I remember when it's just one of those videos. It's like the Milagro Beanfield War. We just ended up with loads of sell-through copies that nobody was. We always ended up with like 8 copies of certain films, and that was one of them. The Wraith was one we ended up with loads. The Manitou, for some reason, we had about 4 copies of that. And then
the Manitou.
Yeah, and then the Milagro Beanfield War, we always ended up with about 9 copies of that. So
yeah. But the Wraith, it's one of those. I think a lot of people will probably have missed it. I'm definitely going to go watch it because it looks like a good laugh.
I'll check it down.
But it looks fun. But I wish I could say more about it. It's one of them films that I just know a lot of people know of. Everybody's heard of it because it was a really cool cover, wasn't it? It was the kind of like the sort of backlit guy in the suit with the car next to him. Looked a bit sort of futuristic, like a cross between Knight Rider and Street Hawk.
Bit Disney looking maybe, but we'll see.
Certainly not. Anyway, 9th of January, Heartbreak Ridge. Yes. So this is the Clint Eastwood film, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Based on it's like the
military camp, training camp.
Is it part training camp and then they go off on a mission?
Yeah, it's almost quasi Full Metal Jacket style.
Full Metal Jacket, yeah.
A bit, yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. It's ages. I know I've seen this. I saw this back in the day, but I don't think I watched it for years.
It's not super memorable. It's good. Clint Eastwood's good in it.
Yeah. Which Leatherface version of Clint is he in this?
He's leather-faced version. Because his face goes gradually more and more leather, and it's kind of locked into the Clint Eastwood
We've said it to be on it. It becomes more like a shoe.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So is he at moccasin style at this? Is he? Is he moccasin? Is he slip-on? Has he got laces?
You have to think because it goes through the many faces of Clint Eastwood. So he goes. If you think what he's like in High Plains Drifter, where he has no expressions, very few. Apart from maybe where he looks, if you imagine looking at the sun and then looking at the camera, there's that kind of squint that he does. He does that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then later down, and obviously he's got a cigarette in his teeth or in his mouth, in the corner of his mouth. Later down the line, when you get to the sort of the Dirty Harry movies, he kind of has more of an eyebrow raise. His face has learned to animate more, so he's got a little bit more animation. But by this time his skin's becoming like really thick leather. And then as he gets older, his voice gets more gravelly, and his face becomes locked in one expression throughout most the whole movie. So to express kind of outrage, he just leans back and to kind of goes. So he doesn't actually change his facial expression. He just moves in revulsion.
He acts via leaning.
Yeah, he does. I mean, and now I've said all this, you think to yourself, you must be crazy. This is Clint Eastwood talking about, but trust me, go and watch. And if you don't, and then go and watch some of the later movies he's made. And all Clint Eastwood movies have their own genuine greatness. Some of them are less great than others, but they're all pretty good. Potentially, Every Which Way But
Dead
Loose.
Heat? It Dead Heat?
They're not. Some of them just aren't.
Sudden Heat. Sudden Heat.
Yes, they're not all great. Not all of them, but they're not terrible. But his face
Heat?
very rarely changes.
Sudden Death?
Sudden Death, Sudden Impact.
Sudden Impact. I got there.
Impact. Yeah. So some are better than others. But generally speaking, his expressions. That's not good. That's terrible. But that said, they're not in Clint Eastwood standards. They're not the worst film in the world. His expressions don't really vary that much, and you can tell whether he's into the film or not because he allows himself more expression. So if he's quite into the character, like in Unforgiven, he's quite a bit of leaning. There's quite a bit of wincing and expression. He's quite into that character. Heartbreak Ridge, he just kind of does that and kind of that's it really.
He's mostly perpendicular.
Yeah, he is. But you can't be too careful with Clint Eastwood because he will find you and beat you up because that man can punch. How many films have you seen with him? He just punches. He's a strong puncher, Clint Eastwood. Always will be.
He's a strong puncher.
Yeah.
There you go.
He hangs around with an ape for real. And that film is actually a documentary. It's not. Every Which Way But Loose is a documentary. That's his wife in it. If that's true, it is his wife. And that monkey was their child, a very ugly child.
And that adventure they're going is for real. That's a documentary. That's not.
Which one? There's two.
Well,
there's
both
every
of
which
them.
way you can, and any which way but
Exactly.
Any which way but
Well,
loose.
and
Every which way but loose, and any which way you can.
And there's the third one that never got finished, which is No Which Way But Ever.
Which was to have and have not, to not and have to.
Every which way you can. Same writers going, right, what can we call this one? Every can way, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, they're actually documentaries, and it's quite a tragedy because that monkey got beaten up by an old lady for hiding some tampons. Anyway, that's a whole different story in Clint Eastwood's life.
Where did that come from?
That's true. That's a true fact.
Okay, from Perpendicular Clint, we go to Ramirez. Ramirez. Because we've got 23rd of January, we've got The Name of the Rose.
Yeah.
Which is... You never watched this?
No, never interested me. The
it is a very good film. It is.
Not
trust
for me.
Me. It's a really good film.
An intellectually nonconformist friar does not sell me anything.
It's right. It's Sean Connery and
that's it.
Christian Slater, F. Murray Abraham, and basically these people are getting killed at this monk station or
an abbey,
a friary, an abbey,
a monk station. Now, if they'd have called it that, I might have watched it.
The name of the monk station. Anyway, at this monk station, some of the monks are getting knocked off. And so Sean Connery is like a medieval Sherlock Holmes, essentially, who goes in to try and figure out what's being done. And Christian Slater is his novice, whatever the word is.
Right.
And obviously there's all kinds of crazy shenanigans going on at the monk station that he has to look into and find out why it's all going on. And it's based on the novel by Umberto Eco. It is a very, very good film. It really is. I have a lot of time for Name of the Rose.
I'm never going to watch it.
Quality film. It's one of my favourite Connery performances.
Right.
I have to say.
Same, because he's another actor.
He's another. Yeah, that's what I was saying. We've gone from
one or two kind of variations of Sean Connery.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a bit more ye olde. It's ye olde Connery.
Ye olde Connery. So are his eyebrows going from corner to up, or up to sort of round?
No, they're in the shape of a cross.
Oh, because if you
just for the religious overtone.
Well, you think of his eyebrow shape in Highlander, and then compare that to his eyebrow shape in Zardoz. One's got wolf eyebrows, the other look like they've been drawn on bananas.
I mean, that wasn't what I was looking at in Zardoz. It was his man nappy, his mappy.
Now, don't you go all apathetic on me.
I couldn't help it, that big mappy he was wearing.
There's an entire sequence in that film where people wave their fingers in his face. For 5 minutes, people just go, ooh.
But the talk of anyway, Name of the Rose is a good film, you should watch it. But the talk of mappies and man nappies has led me to something I'd just like to call back on, because we've had some information on something we've discussed on a previous episode, and that is Bowie's bulge. And so from Rumlook Forum, one of our listeners, who I think follows us on Twitter, on Facebook as well, but Unofficial Who, has given us this info from something from cutthroatfilm.com. So it's about Bowie's bulge.
Okay.
And so I'll just quote it here, that working under the studio lights tends to get pretty hot, especially when wearing layers and a giant stifling wig. So Bowie, in an attempt to alleviate any smell emanating from his nethers, stuffed potpourri into his trousers to combat sweaty butt crack syndrome. So in all seriousness, Bowie's attempts at selflessness gave us the greatest cinematic bulge this side of anything in Magic Mike.
God, that's...
So what you're seeing swinging around there is actually potpourri. Popa Bowie.
Who fills their tights with potpourri?
I don't know. I've not fact checked this and source checked it. I'm just going to go on the fact thingy, but I'm hoping this is true. That it's just
there's facts and things in there that you just need to break down a bit. And the one that David Bowie had a smelly ass crack under lights or otherwise. I mean, I never imagined.
But maybe
that.
it wasn't his. Maybe it wasn't his ass crack he was worried about smelling. Maybe it's a bit like he'd been a bit busy with Iman the night before and got a bit of a
I don't, what do you call that? Yeah, love stink.
I don't know. Isn't that by the B-52s? Love stink, baby love.
I mean,
stink.
if his nether regions are so waffy, whether from sex or from self-pleasure or whatever, that you need to... I mean, why potpourri? That's just... I mean,
because it smells nice.
I know, but it would clearly bulk out the area. So
as we saw, it did.
Yeah, I know, but why shove it there? If he's got a... you could put it underneath. There's ways you could do it. You could just get a spray. You don't need to bulk yourself out with crushed flowers that smell. And plus, That's the sort of thing. I mean, thankfully I'm not a potpourri person because I know there are people out there who are. But that could put you off it for life. But Jennifer Connelly will never. She's banned potpourri in her house.
It just brings back all kinds of flashbacks.
Yeah, because can you imagine? I mean, she essentially stood in front of David Bowie in tights with potpourri down his trousers while he jiggled crystal balls in her face. And she's probably going, what have you been doing?
What smells like that?
I really want to know what smell he is now. It's midnight mist, dear. Now move on.
Just reminds me of The Simpsons. It smells funny in there. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think he would. I wonder what smell he would have chosen. Midnight Garden or something with an eloquent name. They always had names like that. Those potpourris, didn't they? What's
Elderflower Delight?
Well, no, because you weren't allowed to actually have an actual smell in there. So it wouldn't, even though it was made of flowers and crushed things. You say, what does that smell like? Oh, it smells like moon dust and.
Tequila Sunrise.
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah. But no, if he smelled like Tequila Sunrise, I mean, that would have made more sense. But
I don't know. What would he smell of?
Well, Iman Bowie's beef curtains by your description, but I'm pretty sure, or whatever, but that doesn't...
I'm just saying, I'm just thinking, because I can't understand why he would have the, why he would have the potpourri at the front end if he's worried about the back end.
No, I don't get it, and I never will.
So there you go. I thought that was a worthy addition to the end of our film section of this, and I thought you would like to know that.
Yes, and now I feel burdened.
I had to share. A problem shared is a problem halved, as they say.
Or as I like to say, a problem shared makes everyone miserable.
That too. And on that sweet-smelling note, oh so sweet, we're going to end our film and TV coverage for 1987, and we'll be back after this short break with the last lot of games. There is a crapvert coming up as well, so please do sweetly stick around.
Shout out to our amazing show sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com. Let's have another listen to a sample from his great audiobook, The Case of the Notorious Roboticist, read by the delightful Nikki Delgado.
You're the private dick your brother gives tech to, the only reason you've ever cracked a case. Without them, I doubt you could crack a walnut. Moritz hid the fact that stung just a little. You're more comfortable stroking a machine than a woman, aren't you? He looked at the sign. Ruling the world, huh? I don't even think you rule the bedroom. Elvin's old eyes glimmered. Do any men these days? Did she hire you to spy on me? She tried to. I said no. So now you know that she knows. Elvin paused as Moritz retreated. I'll be more careful from here. Why are you helping me? Moritz turned around and walked back to his ship. Never mind. Time to be a good boy now. Grey in hair, devil in ribs.
I know. You want to know what happens? Well, visit DavidHearnWriter.com to find out more.
Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Hello. Yes, we're back. We've got 5 more games in this section. And one of them is something different. We've got something different than what we normally do. We'll get to that as our last one. So a bit of a surprise coming up. Let's see what's going on, though, because first of all, Graham, I don't know. What are you going to tell us different about our first game, the £8.95 version of Donkey Kong?
Well, I can tell you, not a lot. Because it's Donkey Kong. This is a bizarre little thing, really. Now, first, let's just say it's a Donkey Kong arcade conversion, and as a Donkey Kong arcade conversion, it's pretty good. It has all the sights, all the sounds, the animations, the graphics. Not a complicated arcade particularly to convert. Well, I say that. No. I mean, I don't, it's actually quite an accurate conversion, if a little bit over difficult, but the arcade was always quite difficult. Anyway, so it's Donkey Kong. You have to, make your way up to the top of the tower, jumping over the barrels, doing what everyone knows what Donkey Kong is all about. Don't really need to go into the plot lines of it, and of course we all know it's got Jumpman / Mario whatever in it. We all know that. So this is a Ocean version of it, or an Ocean licensed version of it. I'm pretty sure they've thrown their kind of stalwart programmers at this to create it. I think it's John Woods is behind this, or one of the people behind it is John Woods. He did.
It's I think it's Arcana, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Arcana.
I think he's just a producer.
Yeah, but it's what I mean. They've just thrown the team that made X amount of games. So it's made by a team of people that have made this sort of stuff loads. So in terms of its development, it's just they've taken the arcade and made a version of it, by the numbers.
Yeah,
So
weird.
there's nothing really you can add to it if you like Donkey Kong as an arcade and you like that kind of, like that game, the sort of very early platform type game. Well, you'll like it because it's Donkey Kong. It controls like Donkey Kong. It sounds like Donkey Kong. It plays like Donkey Kong. Just does it have a place now at the beginning of 1987? Is it a bit late in the day to be releasing this? Should this not have been released? And maybe it was released. I think maybe I'm not sure if this is a re-release or a release of. I'm not quite sure how. A bit like the previous Crystal Castles. I don't quite know how or why or where the conversations took place that enabled this to become something right now and for it to be reviewed in Zapped right now, for us to have played it right now. But it's Donkey Kong, and you either like Donkey Kong or you don't. It's an important game of its own right in terms of the arcade. This is just another version of it, of which there are hundreds of different versions of revisions of different stuff, different graphics, different iterations of this. They're all over the shop, so this is just another one. It adds nothing more to the Donkey Kong world other than the novelty of having it on the Commodore 64. So I have no opinion on it. The Zapped review was actually kind of in the 60s, I think, which sort of makes sense. It's okay. Yeah. It's an okay conversion. There's nothing terrible about it, but it's Donkey Kong. What about you? I mean, what can you say about it?
Yeah, see, there's weird things about this because this is the second version of an actual official version of Donkey Kong. There was an Atari soft version in 1983, but there's other ones as well. But more important, there was something called Kong 64 in 1983 by Annie Rog as well. The weird thing is, this comes from Ocean, but in 1985, Ocean had released Kong Strikes Back.
Weird.
And I remember we had that. We had the original of that. My brother had bought that. It's one of the originals I remember having because I remember that cover when I saw it. And that was a strange game. And just looking at some screenshots, you kind of go around tracks in it. So for a year and a half later to come back and sort of do a port of the original, and it just seems weird and out of place. It's like I can't get my head around who would think, yeah, let's just put this out. Let's just do this. 6 years. I mean, even in the review in the magazine, Julian Rignall says, this is getting on a bit now. So it's, that comes to something when they're saying, God, this is a bit old.
Yeah.
And I think it's spot on because it was 1981. This is 6 years later, 5-6 years later. It just seems weird. But
the price was
it's
weird.
A decent. Yeah, because it's $8.95. Isn't it?
This should have been $1.99. This has $1.99 written all over it, surely.
Well, that's what I've put. Apart from it, it's a decent conversion of the original game because it should be. It's on better hardware. It looks and sounds like Donkey Kong. And if this was your only way to play Donkey Kong, then yeah, okay, you're going to play it. You might get some enjoyment out of this. But, and I've noted here, just as we said, it should have been a budget release all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should have been farmed out given to Mastertronic, £2, Donkey Kong, whatever.
US Gold probably should have pushed it out.
Yeah, someone should have done that. But this seems like, we see this with Nintendo a lot, and we see it still to this day where they charge high price for old games. And so it seems like maybe the Ocean where they weren't, you can do a conversion of it, but you're charging full price.
Yeah.
Because it's Donkey Kong, this is important game. You want it, you're gonna have to pay. And so maybe they paid a lot of money for the license to do it, and so to actually recoup some of that, they had to be full price.
Yeah,
I don't know, because it's a weird thing. I don't know what the 83 Atari soft version is, whether that's licensed properly or whether it's a conversion from another version of it. I don't know. But this just seems completely out of place. But if you like Donkey Kong, it's a solid version of it. I mean, I'm not a massive Donkey Kong aficionado, so some people will tell me that, oh well, no, it's not quite good. It's this and that. I did laugh my head off at the title screen though, which looks like. Because if you look at it, and I put it in the notes, just imagine what's missing in between the monkey and Pauline.
I don't want to imagine that. That's terrifying.
All I'm hoping is that there's some potpourri down there.
There is.
That's all I can hope, because
bit of midnight mist,
and that would explain Mario's expression on the other side. I'm going to post this picture.
You have to just go into the sort of the graphics, because they're the only things that are differentiating this from any other version. I mean, you look at how many versions of this there are just on the, because it must be available for in some version, whether it's this version or other. Every single console on Earth must have a version of this game at some level.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't understand. I don't get why this came out when it did. I don't understand. It makes very little sense to me. But, here we are. Gave it 60%. It's Donkey Kong.
I tell you what,
Let's move on.
I tell you what.
What?
It's a lot better than the next one.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Let's move on into
go.
that next one. Okay, so this was £1 more. This is £9.95. This £9, a pound more and half the score, 30%.
Goodness
This is
me.
Bazooka Bill. I keep writing this a lot at the start of some of these reviews, and I've just written, "What the hell is this?" Because if you're gonna rip off Green Beret, then you better do it well, and this does it awfully. I'm not even sure what Melbourne House were thinking here. I don't even know what anybody was thinking that was involved in the making of this. So the plot, as such as there is, you see Blocky Bill, rather than Bazooka Bill, sent off on a mission to rescue General MacArthur from some nefarious revolutionary group. This all sounds very bizarre. Bill runs slowly along, punching anything that comes near him, which happens to be hyperactive enemies hepped up on goofballs. It's crazy what goes on this screen. I didn't have any idea how to progress. Supposedly you have to find the right position in the landscape.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it. There's no indication of where or what this is. Supposedly ladders warp you to different places.
Yeah, sure they do.
Again, no idea. The graphics are inept. Why is Bill's fist so massive when he punches? Because unlike Green Beret, so you all know Green Beret. Green Beret, you run along, you stab people come running at you. It's nice and smooth. This has none of the subtlety of that. It's just at first I thought because I've running out an emulator, I thought the emulator had gone mad. I thought I was running it in warp mode. And I realised I wasn't. And it wasn't. This is actually how it was. So I looked at a video, and that's just how it is. But you usually get about 3 or 4 people. There's like Green Beret. There's 2 layers up and down. Enemies coming left and right, charging on it. Yeah, you can punch them. At one point, you can pick up a knife. Why, when you throw the knife, do you stop? And it's just all awfulness. Why does his fist get so massive when he punches?
Don't know.
Why? I don't understand. It's an awful misfire of a nightmare. That I just thought needed taking around the back and shooting, because there's nothing good about this. The music's horrendous, the graphics are terrible, it plays awfully, there's no feedback, it's just random hyperactive nonsense, and it made me really quite angry, because we've spoken about how much we like Green Beret in previous episode when we're looking at it. We're big fans of that. If you're gonna knock it off, nearly quite a few months later, if you're gonna do it, you better do it right. If you're not, then don't bother. Go home and stop it. You've done a very bad thing, and this is a very, very bad thing. Bazooka Bill, bad. So, were you did you get anything from Krabuka Bill, whatever?
I thought this game was utter shit.
Yes.
I think it was so badly flawed that it beggars belief that Melbourne House even looked at this. But they have a bit of a weird penchant for hyper blocky games, because it reminded me of Street Hassle. It reminded me of other games of this. Asterix was another one of theirs, I think, which was kind of super blocky, and I've probably come across more. It's so bad it's infuriating, this game. Even if you put aside the fact that the controls are stupid, the enemies are repetitive, in the background loop in such an annoying way that you think it's just the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, they looped that badly at one point that it just started halfway through the background, so it's not even like there's no care or thought in any of it. The main sprites, such as they are supremely blocky, all variants of exactly the same thing, in exactly the same patterns, coming on exactly the same way, and like you say, the logic is out the window, so you stop to throw a knife. There are other weapons, although I didn't actually find any on my brief play and time with it. The music is a weird, almost oriental blend of twiddly nonsense. None of it makes any sense, and there's no cohesion, there's no thought. What I think this is, in reality, is they had a little bit of a game engine that made people run across the screen and you could punch. That's as far as they ever got with it, and then they just said, well, release that then. If that's all you've got. Yeah. And I remember reading in the Ocean book, I think it was the Ocean book, about the fact that some of these publishing companies had a real job chasing some of these young programmers to finish their games, because some of them were made by, essentially 16, 17, 18-year-old, kids, teenagers, essentially. And they'd been paid, a progress payment or, some money up front to get the game done. And then they just dragged the heels and just produced utter rubbish. And then, what are you going to do about it, kind of thing. And this may very well be an example of that. But my worry is that they do seem to have a bit of a history of it at Melbourne House. So I don't know. This shouldn't have been released. It's unfinished. I'm pretty sure it's unfinished. And if it is finished, then
I don't know what level of QA has been going on, but not anything I'd recognise. This is almost at the Firebird camp of QA. It's terrible. Awful game. It shouldn't be released. And Zap, really, as we've said before, instead of pasting these games or giving them a hard time or, and I suppose they're acting like a warning to say, don't buy this because unless, really like running around in blocky world, punching inconceivably at stuff, this is nothing here for you. And I suppose that there is that warning that at least you wouldn't go buy it by accident. So maybe that's why they do it. Because I've often thought, well, if it's below a certain percentage, why give it so much time? Why not just have a list of games on the front of the issue that says, these games are shit, don't buy them. But I suppose they can't really do that. Wouldn't really be impartial.
I think the interesting is like, I just having a quick look at looking at this on Lemon 64, and someone's posted the review scores from other magazines, and CNVG gave this 9 out of 10.
They cannot have played it.
And your Commodore gave it 8 out of 10. So I think it's quite good that Zap come in with its 30%, because there's the reality.
But that's funny you say that, because I seem to remember a time, these are the same two magazines that gave Fist 2 a really good review. And other Melbourne House products, really good reviews. So, let's just leave that there in the cauldron and let that boil away, because it seems odd to me that Zap were being very truthful about these awful games, because Bazooka Bill is crap. There's no way around that. Fist 2 had some redeeming qualities, but this is crap. And for them to give it 9 out of 10 or a high percentage rating in this magazine, tell me that they've been given a backhander. There's a brown envelope with some cash in it somewhere for somebody. Because there's no way you could review that with your hand on your heart and say it's anything other than shit. And at least Zad had the wherewithal to Zaz. At least Zap had the wherewithal to do that. So
that's a 90% sizzler.
It's outrageous that it's not. It's just crap. So and it's not even there's no novelty value to it. Just another game that shouldn't be on there. Don't play that one. There's a few actually in this episode that are just total January avoids. You know what? Go for dry January with these ones. Don't bother.
Indeed, this is. I couldn't get my head around it.
No.
It just seemed so weird playing it. It was just, I just was like I couldn't physically understand what I was looking at.
I had a friend whose job was to post Saturday night, so Sunday morning, go around, and he used to work for British Telecom, and he used to go around all the phone boxes and clean out all the condoms and spunk that was in them. That was his job. He was the spunk cleaner. We used to take the piss out of him for being a spunk cleaner. That's his job. He was a Spunky Pete. Spunky Pete. He was Spunky Pete. That was his job. He was, we big bottle of detergent, rubber gloves, go around wiping off spunk from the phone boxes of Cleethorpes and Grimsby and whatnot. I would argue that playing this game is worse than that job. So that's how bad it is.
Is this a bazooka spill?
Ew. He saw things, that guy. He had a 1,000-yard stare from the age of 12 or 13, but developed over time into something quite... He ended up going in the army, actually, later on, I think. It affected him, that job. It changed him.
It'd affect anyone. Like this game, like playing this game for extended amounts of time would affect anyone.
Exactly, yeah. You're gonna learn to hate, and that's how it. There's probably serial killers that start their long journey to murder by playing Bazooka Bill at some point.
Quite possibly. I hated it. It was awful. Wasn't
Terrible.
It?
Yep. No.
Really
awful.
dreadful.
Crap.
Crapola.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bazooka.
Bazooka. Yeah. Bazooka spill.
Ew.
It's a cack spill.
Yeah. Tell you what, wouldn't it be great if a really great arcade conversion came along next?
It would be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
It's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen. No. So let's move along to our next one. Graham, have you been gallivanting around Galivan?
Galivan. Now, this was odd because it's not one I'd heard of at all, arcade-wise, or in the
advert was
C64.
cool.
Yeah.
It was a really, really cool Wakeling advert.
Yeah. Uncredited, but yeah, Bob Wakeling, great stuff. Not complaint there. Game itself, though. Yeah. So in this,
I think it was a Wakeling one.
This is an arcade conversion. The arcade was created, but it's a real Japanese arcade. This one. So it's actually called Cosmo Police Galivan, the arcade, and it's a shoot 'em up slash. It reminded me of another game of this type, but it's kind of a mixture between run and jump kind of logic. So there's a couple of games that come later like that, but you're kind of running and jumping, and you get into sort of metal suits and shoot lasers, and you're sort of climbing around a sort of, I want to say caves, but inside a kind of environment where you can leap up on ledges and platforms and sort of move around, kind of a big environment to sort of scroll on. So it's a bit like the inside of Nodes of Yesod, but a bit more speedy,
Freeform.
Yeah, a bit more freeform.
And it scrolls.
Yeah, it scrolls around. It's quite nice. The actual mechanics of the game are quite nice because the arcade's quite nice. So the arcade is essentially you play a little a Cosmo policeman or whatever they call it. It's all I think you're a space sheriff. I can't remember what you are anyway. But the actual inspiration of these things, it's the Japanese name for it is a tokusatsu, which is a particular kind of live action film with special effects in. So think Godzilla. And so those kind of shows are supremely popular in Japan, or were, probably still are. And Cosmo Police was one of those, or Space Sheriff Gavan and Space Sheriff Sharivan were two. And this is based upon that. So man runs around, but can power up into a suit. When he's in the suit, he can shoot lasers and punch enemies and do all of that. So you take on the role of the Cosmo Police, and you've got to run around this sort of landscape on the planet Kynep, or Synep, running around and sort of trying to jump over and avoid or punch or fight the enemies on your quest to kind of run around. Now, I wasn't sure exactly, beyond running around and trying to find the boss, which I think you're supposed to do, what else you do. But as I worked my way through the game and went further down, I was able to find the suit. When I got the suit, I had a bit more power. Everything takes your life off you in this game, so eventually if you run out of energy, you're dead. So you've got to try and jump about and be careful with that. But once you get the suit, you get a little bit more power. And so you kind of work your way around this kind of maze, jumping over things, avoiding things, landing on platforms, running about. So the arcade version looks quite nice, plays quite well. C64 version it's like all of the really refined bits of the arcade have been removed. So you're left with kind of the basics. So there's a basic looking Galivan character running about. Not so many enemies, but what are there are kind of blocky and float about. Some of them bounce you in a really annoying way, so you seem to have to jump over them. What the hell are you supposed to do? And so I was hankering to try and find the suit as quick as possible, because trying to punch these things and fight is pretty crap in this game. The music is really annoying in the C64 version. Not like that in the arcade, but this is really annoying. And the graphics were kind of blocky. The background graphics are actually okay, but quite repetitive. But they're okay. But the sprites themselves are a bit chunky. Not as chunky as Bazooka Bill, but a bit on the chunky side. So it just felt like it's everything that the arcade isn't. Because the arcade's got loads of really fun stuff, exciting sounds, really nice graphics, loads of logic, loads of fun stuff too. There's big levels in this. But you find the boss, and I think it's two bosses in the arcade, and then I think it just repeats. But it's kind of that kind of game. Mm-hmm. So it just lacks the parts of the arcade which make it interesting. So because it doesn't have enough or any of those things, and because it's kind of monotonous and a bit dull, the game loses all of its arcade flavour that would have been there. And without those things, it's just you running around a kind of cave, avoiding what looked like sort of monocoloured medium res monks.
They're weird, aren't they?
Yeah, and some of them just really hard to avoid. So after a while, you're just like, what am I doing? And I think that's as far as I got. This is an Imagine release, Imagine Arcade license release. This is Grant Harrison and Kevin Grieve who made this. So that's Mr. V and Savage and Underworld and Mr. Super Bowl 20 at the helm. So people who know how to make a game. And I think I'm not sure what
you missed that. You missed that View to a Kill there.
Yeah, there's View to Kill, but they, with the exception of that one, they do know how to make games. There's no doubt about that. And I'm not sure what went wrong here. I have a funny feeling it's either time ran out, or they weren't given enough time, or the machine, the Commodore 64, was simply overwhelmed by what they were trying to do in terms of converting that arcade. It's not that it's an amazing arcade, but there's a lot of detail in it which isn't in this. I'm guessing that they've had to scale it right down to what is essentially just a guy running around. And what baffles me a little bit, I think I don't know. That's as much as I could get from it, because it's not a really 53% is about right for this, because it's slap bang in the middle of it's neither crap, super crap like Bazooka Bill, but it's not any good either. So it just sits in that kind of middle. I imagine if you maybe like the arcade, you might like it. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. This is a game I knew of because I kept seeing the advert everywhere back then, but I never played. So it's not something I'd ever played, and I was completely unaware. I never played the arcade. I don't think the arcade. I'm not even sure if the arcade ever came out in the UK. It's not something I've seen anywhere. So it may have done, but probably not where we were. But it's not something I was aware of. So it wasn't never a game that it was kind of just came and went, and it never made a big splash with us. It's the thing, isn't it? Because it feels like prototype. You were saying there's like the Godzilla films. It's like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Yeah, that sort of idea.
Because it's the person in. Because the main sprite is really weird. The guy, it's like he's got a little sort of. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. I was trying to sort of describe it.
Mega Man.
It's like
Mega
Man, but it looks like he's got like a little blue sort of rubber suit on. I don't know. It looks very weird. And then when he starts shooting, and those enemies that come towards you are odd. They're like, I don't know, mole men. It's all very peculiar and bizarre. And I think you're spot on when you say because they've kept the arcade structure, which is that one big open level.
Yeah.
Because if you watch a playthrough of the arcade, it just seems like one big open level that you just make your way through and repeat and rinse and repeat. And they've kept that. So they've kept the level design, but in keeping that level design and having to have it all in memory and all resident and everything there, everything else has had to be pared back to the bone. And so there's not a lot of space for decent sprites. There's not a lot of space for decent music. It's like the level is everything, and everything else is kind of like, oh, we need to fit these in as well. And so it just sits in this weird middle ground of it's kind of okay, and you kind of just but weirdly, like unlike a lot of arcades, so like Ghost and Goblins, like Green Beret, like those kind of arcade games, this would have been and a sort of comment of the arcade as well, I guess. Sort of thing. It needs levels. It needs to be structured a bit more. It's just a big open area that you just sort of wander about with no real knowledge of, am I going in the right direction? Oh, it's changed to green backgrounds. Oh, it's changed to blue backgrounds. There's no real sort of sense of progression. And you're right. I mean, I'm looking at some screenshots now. But the backgrounds, the rocks and stuff, the textures, the actual sprites, the character design, whatever the back, is actually quite nice. The backdrops and things, but it just feels a little, even what the arcade looks kind of gets by on its, because it's the same design, but it gets by on its kind of like its arcadeness, should we say. So it's got lots of pretty graphics. It's got lots of booms and shaking and lots going on, and it's all nice and pretty, and the sprites are good. And so you're playing it and you're getting a lot of kinetic feedback in that way. You take away all of that and you realize that the gameplay is just a real bit drab. And that's what you're left with here. When you strip away all the frippery, you're left with a bit, a drab, Galibland. I think is probably where I'd go. So it's not terrible. I think you smack on 53%. Yeah, £9, maybe a bit much really though, isn't it? For what they've obviously paid for the license and they need to get the cash back. But it's just a neither here nor there game. And the worst thing is about in this episode, in this issue, it's probably one of the better ones.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No,
because at least it's not crap.
No, it's not crap, but it's just it's a shadow of the actual game it's trying to be, and because it's a shadow of that game, like all shadows, with the exception of Hank Marvin, it's not really any good. It's just like playing a sort of like a cover disc version of it. It's like it's not all there.
It's like when we used to walk into Tate's and they had the cover tapes on, and you're like, this isn't that song.
Yeah. Exactly.
What is this?
It's almost it's a nearly version. So yeah,
it's a nearly version. Everything's been stripped away, and you realise actually it's not that great underneath. Shame, but anyway, at least I got to play it. I'd always wondered what it was.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's Galivan, and is it Nichibutsu is the company that made that?
Well, it's Nichibutsu or Nihon Busan.
Yeah. Whatever you say
I think one's owned by the other or something like that. So the design is by Nichibutsu and the copyright is I think the parent company is Nihon Busan.
Yeah, well, it's not a company I've known. It's not that company, the one that made it. It's not ever going to happen.
That's what I mean. It seems like a really weird license to go and get.
Yeah.
Who was crying out for a conversion of Galivan?
Well, no one. I wonder if it's a bit of legacy. Maybe it was who knows, that maybe it was hanging around in a cupboard somewhere and they thought, what's this? They're going with it.
Someone make this. Yeah, get that guy who did V. He'll do it.
Yeah.
Give it to him. Anyway, there you go. That's Galivan. So let's Galavant off.
We should.
And let's head out into the darker depths of space for our next game. So our next game is another big one. Well, it's one of the better ones in this episode. This is Nuclear Embargo. This got 85% and is a tenner of your Earth money. So what we have here is another multi-type game. Another multi-type game comes under the radar, and I was quite surprised because in concept, this really reminded me of what we played last week, which was Assault Machine.
Yeah. Yes. Very.
So it's weird that we get two very similar sort of multi-part sort of type of these things. So let's roll back. So what we got? So what's going on here? So the Earth is struggling for fuel far into the future in about the 25th century or whatever. And we are being held ransom by Rael the Perverse.
Damn him.
Who presides over Saturn and its moons, which houses all the precious uranium-235.
No, it doesn't.
In the solar system. Go with me here. Go with me. Because the Earth is now reliant on, and has been for 4 centuries, we've used to use uranium-235 to power everything. And so the only place we can get it in the solar system is from the moons of Saturn.
Of course
But Rael, who's the many grandson down of Rael the Great or whatever he was, the first king, who said, yeah, okay. Rael the Perverse goes, no, and he demands 100 Earth people of his own choice for reasons.
Experiments.
Who knows? And if we don't give him them, then I'm sorry, there's no more uranium-235.
I don't mean to be mean,
plot.
but 100 isn't a lot on a planet of 7.5 billion.
No, 1,000.
Still not a lot.
Well,
give him 1,000 people.
It is if you're one of those 1,000.
Well, we'd have to give him the good ones.
Who are you going to give him then? Maybe, but it's no. Remember, it's of his choice.
That's what I mean.
He's not going to choose the bad ones, is he?
Well, we don't know. It depends how we market them. Anyway, it's a whole separate issue.
Anyway, so Earth is facing utter ruin, but is unable to agree to this. So, it's going to be starvation, end of civilization we know it, cats and dogs living together, all that kind of stuff. So the Earth decides to take in our normal way, take the uranium-235 by force. This sounds similar to maybe real-world conflicts that may be going on, but is in no way a parallel to.
Yeah, it does sound a bit.
But, I'm not getting into the politics of this, but, you make your own choices up around that. So that's the plot, that's the backstory. So what this is you are sent off as Jimmy number 1 or pilot number 1 or whatever you are. You're the star pilot, and you are sent off to the moons of Saturn to scan them and basically, half-inch any kind of uranium-235 you can find lying around in barrels, and that's what this is. So off you go, you're sent off there, and so this game starts off, and it's quite minimalist in a lot of ways. So it starts off with what you basically see is a 10 by 10 grid, and you've got lots of stats down the side, and the main important one of that is energy. So you start in the top left of the grid. So you've got 10 by 10, and you can move to any. You basically move your joystick across. You've got a cursor. You pick a grid, and you press the fire button, and you travel to that square. Further you go, the more energy it costs. So within some of these squares, there will be either a small circle or a big circle. The big circles are the moons. The small circles are pulsars. If you land on one with a pulsar, a quick press of the F3 key will take you into the star system where you can track the pulsar down by just moving the camera around. It's kind of a looping sort of small camera space. And you'll see a little glint of something, and you have to shoot it. If you shoot it, you get some energy back, and that's how you kind of build your energy back. Because going to any of the planets, so once you've done that, you go to the planet. So going to the planet can usually entails about a 3-stage process. So the first stage is you press F3 once you're over a planet, and you'll get like a top-down view of the moon itself. And again, it's that small scrolling area, so you'll loop around quite quickly going up, down, left or right. Sometimes it's barren and there's nothing there, so you head off to another moon. Other times there are some sort of installation, some gun emplacement basically, and in the bottom left of the screen there is the word X-ray in a little bar. So essentially the bar will move up towards the top, or it'll go down to the bottom. If it starts to move, it means there's some uranium-235 on that planet. But first of all, you have to take out the sort of gun emplacements that are shooting you, and they kind of got spokes. So there's 4 spokes and a center bit. The center bit will shoot at you. You have to blow up the 4 spokes around it. It's quite tricky because every time they hit you, and they constantly hit you, you lose a bit of energy and the screen shakes, so it's hard to line up your shots. And there can be many of these things in a row, so you've got to do quite a bit of shooting. If you take all those out, you can then find where by moving around the grid, the bar will move up in the X-ray part. Once it's full, you're over where the uranium is, so then you can you can drop a robot down. You've got 10 of these robots. You can lower one of them, send one of them down to the surface. To do this, you load one up, you fire it down. There's a little circle in the bottom right corner. You've got to keep the little dot in the middle of that. Keep it down, it lands fine. At that point, it becomes like a 2D side-on scrolling thing, kind of moon patrol-ish, I guess. But you've got to basically, there's an arrow pointing which way, so you go left or right, whichever way the arrow is, find the barrel, grab the uranium out of it, and then head up back to the planet and repeat. There's 10 moons to go through, and you've just got to make your way around this 10 by 10 grid, try and survive, get all the energy you can to head back to Earth, or you die if you run out of energy, or you lose all your robots. And that's it. Okay, rinse and repeat. So I thought this was much better than Assault Machine. I really didn't like Assault Machine, but I actually didn't mind this once I'd got my head around what I was supposed to do, because there's quite a lot, there's quite a chunk to this, and getting your head around how all the different disparate parts of it sort of fit together. But once you do, I thought it was quite cohesive. All the sections, they felt connected to each other, whereas I felt in that Assault Machine they didn't. And I didn't think any of this kind of concepts worked. So, you're scanning stuff, you're picking stuff up. It reminded me, I don't know if you've ever played Mass Effect 2, where you have to scan the planets and send a probe down. But I know, so you scan the planets, you find the probes, you get the stuff. It's kind of similar-ish in, that kind of concept. It's not the fastest game. It's not the best looking game. It's not the best sounding game. But the underlying concept and the way it's all presented and the way it all fits together, and it all kind of plays okay. And so this is all right. I didn't mind this. And maybe I didn't mind this so much because we'd had so little quality to play. I don't know. In a higher scoring magazine run, in an episode or issue, we might have looked at this and gone, it's a bit dull. But coming at this as we did after all the stuff we've been playing, I was like, you know what, this is all right. And so I was like, maybe I was looking for some enjoyment somewhere. And I quite got into this, and I found myself playing this for quite a chunk of time, and so I thought this was all right. They gave it 85%. I'm not quite sure I'd be up there. I think a tenner is maybe a bit expensive, but it's all right. This was quite good. I don't know. What did you think?
For the same reason, I wasn't really into the similar game to this. Parts of it seemed all right. The presentation of the game was actually quite nice. Like you say, it at least had cohesion. And whereas what was the previous one that we played that was like this called? Assault
Machine.
So whereas Assault Machine felt like it was bits of games bolted together that had little to do with each other, this does have a flow. So it's a bit obtuse at times, this game. It's not always immediately obvious. You've got to take your time with it to sort of go through the options and get used to the transporters and the keys, and knowing which view is to do what, and when you actually when you do find a planet with some assault batteries on and you got to shoot them, the way it interacts, shooting downwards and those shooting up at you is quite nice. Works quite well. It's quite fast. So there's some decent enough graphic touches in it, and I think it's just a game. I think if you were going to accuse this game of anything, it would be that it would eventually. I think 10 levels of this would get a bit tiresome.
Yeah.
And because you've got to also think quite carefully when you're moving around between the planets and the pulsars, because you actually use energy up going between those. So you've got to sort of think about. You can't just zoom around and go to these things. You've got to think about the resources it takes to get from point A to point. So there's a little bit of that in it. There's a little bit more thought here than there was in any other games like this, and because it's got those extra elements of thought, and the graphics aren't bad. When you're scrolling around, it is repetitive, but it's fast and it plays quite nicely. It's not juddery or anything like that. It's quite nippy. And so when you're in the action, it feels like there's things going on. And like you, I thought, this hasn't been rich pickings for this particular episode, and this isn't perfect in any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly finished and complete and coherent, and it's unusual looking, and the parts of the game work quite nicely together. It's not dogmatic, it's not half finished, it's not half empty. There's enough to go at in terms of its visuals, its sound, and its gameplay to make it quite an interesting experience. Would it get dull over time? Well, maybe it would, but you could say that about quite a number of games of this type. If you get into the zone with it, you're going to be in the zone with it, and time's going to pass in a different way and all of that. So it's not without its problems, I think, here and there, but those problems aren't necessarily by design or fault of the game. I think it's just, a game like this could become repetitive. But
I agree completely.
But at the same time,
yeah,
there's other games that I think the long and the short of it for me are, I think it's a good game in terms of this episode. Is it a great game? No, it's not great. And it maybe the score is a little bit high, but in actuality, you know what, it's not bad. And it did play well, and at least it was coherent, finished, and you could get into it, and it didn't crash or bug out, or you weren't looking at really blocky nothing, or it wasn't half empty, or there wasn't, there was enemies in it. A lot of the games we've played for this episode, it feels like there's always been something missing out of them. At least this one had everything in it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it, and I didn't perhaps play it as long as you had. I played it for enough time to get to go to on a planet and find the resources and shoot the things and do all of that. But it was certainly the best of it stands head and shoulders above most of the titles in this particular episode, which is saying something. But it's worth going and have a look at. I think that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think you're right. We don't play many of these kind of games, and when we do get them, half the time they just don't all stack together. What was that awful one we played many ages ago? Starship.
Oh God knows. The one that was
the weird one.
The one that was a bit like all the borrowed heavily from all the various sci-fi movies.
Can't remember what Starship Andromeda.
Yeah,
that was the one.
Like that, yeah.
So it's those kind of things where they have these, delusions of grandeur that they could fit all this in and do these great things. And it's like, look, you've got 64K. This just keeps it nice and simple. There's a few planets. There's some stuff to shoot. You got to get energy. You got to go and get this. The little interstitial bits, flying your robot down, the scrolling left and right. It all just works. And it's got, some nice little bits of character to it when I don't know if you got to it, but when your satellite comes down and picks your robot up and flies it back up to the ship, it's all quite nice.
Yeah, no.
And so there's bits to it that I liked, and I think on the whole of everything we've played, this stood out for me as just an unusual concept done well. I think is and so
I'd agree.
There you go. Nuclear Embargo. Yeah. I never heard of it as well. Never heard of it, never played it. Never until we talked about the crap vert the other week.
Yeah, same.
And I was never played this, never saw it, never knew of this. So pleasant surprise, I think. But there you go. That's Nuclear Embargo. We've got one more game left, which is off our beaten track. Down a scary other track. Down a scary alley, a scary adventure alley. Ooh. Graham, let's talk Dracula.
Okay.
So tell us about Dracula.
So Dracula is well, first off, this is a text adventure with graphics. So some graphics. So mainly text, some graphics. Famous for a number of reasons. Firstly, this was a CRL game, and it was quite famous at the time for having quite violent imagery in it, which gave it, well, it was submitted for a rating with the BBFC, that's the British Board of Film Classification, I think they are, certification, whatever they're called. Yeah. So, and those are the people that normally rate movies. And at this particular time, actually, it's interesting because this is just on the back of, or just after at this time, a whole series of events that occurred with the BBFC around the ratings of violence in video. So just not long before this, video nasties had been a thing, and if you're not from the UK and you don't really know what that means, lots of films were released straight to video in the UK that were from all angles of the globe, and some of those were really quite super violent, and they actually skipped the whole going through the government censorship scheme, such as it was, which was the BBFC, or the rating scheme, where they would rate these films for an audience-appropriate nature. And they went straight to video and just put them in the video shops. And of course, this meant that films like Zombie Flesh Eaters and hyper-violent films like Cannibal Ferox and Cannibal Holocaust and a whole ton of others, some of which weren't really actually either violent or gory or anything, but reputationally and from their video covers and extremity, became the talking point of various people that thought that people shouldn't have the rights to see them. It's crazy when you think about it now, but anyway. So on the back of all of that, and there was a whole load of spiel in the newspapers about video nasties and the violence in them and how it was affecting kids, and this was a big dialogue at the time. And by this point, it had kind of died off a bit, but TV was censoring films on it quite heavily. So RoboCop and things like that, when they eventually came on TV, were heavily censored. Even The Thing, when it was originally shown, was censored on ITV. So it gives you a sense of the kind of pressure that the TV companies and everything else was under, and that included games companies. So instead of, I think, embracing that, really, I don't think any of the imagery in this is actually particularly violent or gory. Maybe it was at the time, I don't know. But I think more for marketing spin, I have to say. CRL submitted this to the BBFC, and because it had violent, quote-unquote, violent imagery and gory images in it, such as they are, squint and you might get an idea about that, it was rated 15, so this is a 15-rated game. So thereby, nobody below the age of 15 was, by rights, legally allowed to purchase or play this or view it. This was essentially the first 15-rated, and not really adult, is it, but 15-rated game. I think it might even be the first rated game, and later down the line, of course, things like Mortal Kombat and stuff, they got rated, and they were rated 18 rated, and so on and so forth. And it went kind of crazy. So this is kind of the beginning of that. The game itself is a text adventure, so it seems odd right from the get-go that this would be a 15 rating, because, unless it's horrific description, and it can't possibly be any worse than anything that Sean Hudson's ever written. You are taken into the world of Dracula. So Dracula, as we all know, Bram Stoker's famous novel about the Count, comes to England to purchase a property, essentially. So it's the world's most boring story about house hunting, really. But in the trappings of Jonathan Harker, who's a solicitor, goes to sort of seal the deal, as it were, and finds out he's a vampire. Dracula then comes and starts vamping people. We all know there's so many variations of Dracula, so this is a variation of that story, split into 3 parts. So the first part is called First Night. These are all separate loads, so it's kind of you can play these independently of each other, and they sort of follow in a sequence, but they are 3 mini adventures, if you like. The first one being mini is the operative word. So First Night is essentially you can play as Jonathan Harker, and you arrive in Count Dracula's country, Transylvania, that's okay. And you're staying at the Golden Crone, which made me laugh a lot. And then you sort of strange stuff happens, and you've actually got to sort of type in text commands a la text adventure to navigate your way around the various hazards and tips. And if you don't, then you die. And if you die, you die. And you're normally, if it was freezing to death or things like that, you're presented with a gory graphic and a bit of music. So you can play the First Night. The second one is called The Arrival, which is starts just after you arrive at Dracula's castle. In the book, Jonathan Harker goes to Dracula's castle to get him to sign some papers and ends up getting trapped there by Dracula, who then he gets basically given to the brides of Dracula, vampires who feed off him and keep him there, and then eventually he's able to escape and tries to get his revenge on Dracula for doing that. But this doesn't do that bit. So you sort of start at the Dracula's castle, and then you've got to, once you realise he's a vampire and he's going to do some nasty stuff, you've got to try and escape his castle. Third part is called The Hunt, where essentially you are trying to track Dracula down in the context of an insane asylum, which in the book is kind of where it sort of segues from a book a little bit here, but there is an entire part where there's an insane asylum, and the doctor in the book is working in there with a mental patient, or one of the patients who was the previous solicitor who worked with Dracula, who went insane. And long story short, you basically got to try and piece together some series of events that are getting increasingly weird inside of the asylum. So you start to see weird boxes of earth appear, and people start dying, and vampires start appearing, and all that kind of thing. So you get these 3 adventures, you work your way through them, text commands, the usual thing, north, east, south, pick, closed door, locked door, open window, you get the idea. And this is periodically interspersed with graphics, and these graphics are normally images of ghouls, vampires, nasty stuff, gore in some places. And that's really the crux of this game. So it's a text adventure. Now, you either like text adventures or you don't. There's no middle ground for text adventures. This is quite a well-written text adventure. So when the text does appear, and it appears in it scrolls up the screen, there's quite a lot of it to read. So you're reading but there's quite a lot of it. It's quite well written. It's quite well described. Some of the sequences when you're are a bit daft in this game. So there are, because and there's no other way to describe it. So you'll go east and you'll pick up thing and you'll do that stuff, and then periodically you just have to wait. And and you've got to wait for the right amount of time for certain things to happen in this game. And that is a bit daft. But I don't know if that's because I haven't played a lot of text adventures in my time, I have to say. Now, weirdly, the very first game I ever made was a text adventure on the Acorn Electron called The 3 Keys. No word of a lie. And so I'm not that I have a penchant for text adventures. I do find them quite fascinating if they're good, and they've got to be really good. Now, the text on this is great. I don't necessarily think the images really do that much for it. And in fact, I don't know if you found this, but whenever the Toccata and Fugue music appeared, it got really bloody annoying because I couldn't seem to skip it. So it was the sequence the dream sequence in the first night part, and then the part when you see the 3 vampires in the arrival. Every time this music appears, it's Toccata and Fugue by Bach, I think it is, isn't it? Toccata and Fugue. D minor, yeah, I think it's Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach, pretty sure it is. So you get that, but it's more as the whole piece of music before you can do anything. So you're like, oh, here we go again. So it just slows down a game that doesn't need to be slow. The my point of all of this is, if you like adventure games, you're probably going to like this because it's not a bad old adventure game as far as I'm aware. But I think that intensity and horror and things that are scary are very difficult to convey in text inside of this kind of adventure. And I think what they're trying to do is make it feel more scary than it actually is by adding these extra graphics. Now, I don't know nowadays, because we're so immune to this kind of thing. Back in 1980 odd, was this considered super scary? This is on the back of videos having people having their brains drilled out, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't that bad. But nowadays, we laugh at stuff like that, but, Game of Thrones is far more violent and on TV and many other TV series which we've chatted about many, many times. So contextually, this is kind of a walk in the park. I think a young kid would have no problem with this. So it's not that it's scary or anything like that. I think contextually, it's from the 80s. It lives there. And I actually quite a nice time playing it. I don't really go for these things normally, but it was quite intriguing. I really liked the Dracula book, and I think that helped. But I didn't find anything scary about it, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm so immune to scares now that I'm just. I don't know what it would take. I don't think a text adventure is going to do it for me now as an adult, or I wouldn't as a teenager, 15-year-old especially. But I didn't feel any pressure or time pressures or anything else. If you don't do things in the right sequence, you do die in this. But I found it weirdly, and I don't know if this has said something else, I found it really easy. I just found it really easy to figure out. And I never normally have that skill with these kind of adventures. I found my way through that first night in really super quick. And then the arrival, I'm pretty much 90% through it. And weirdly, you don't really get an ending out, it just stops, which is a bit annoying. But I thought as a final hurrah to this particular issue of Zap, which has been devoid of anything, at least it was something that had a bit of tangibility about it and fangs.
Yeah.
And at least it had something a bit, pokey and interesting about it. A bit like Nuclear Embargo in that at least it was pretty much all encompassing and it did what it set out to do. And if that's the aim, even if it had annoying bits in it, it was all right. But that's my take of Dracula. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got probably a bit, because I played this. I think we bought this back
No,
then.
I see. I
And
never
knowing
bought
it was a
it.
text adventure. Yeah, we did. I think we did buy it. I did buy it, or my brother did buy it. One of us bought it. And so I wanted to go back to it and have a look at it. And I saw it was in this issue. And I thought, you know what, we'll take a bit of a sojourn. We'll go have a look at this because we don't normally do this sort of thing. It's what I remember really. It's that those three, it's that 3-part structure, and I think the problem I had with it. I mean, that like you said, that the first adventure, I actually died quite a lot, but I couldn't figure the logic. Which was annoying me for ages. I kept getting killed by the dog, and I was like, well, and I don't even know if you can get out of it when the dog appears if you go that far, because to complete it you need to wake up in your bedroom. But every time, no matter what I seem to do, it's just that. So eventually I figured out, I have to go up and light the lamp. But it's like I found, if we're talking text adventures, you want pointers. You want pointers to what you want to do. So, okay, so there's a lamp. You can't light it. Okay, let's have a look in the drawer. You find that. That's okay. We kind of work this out. But there doesn't seem to be any logic behind, you're not turning the light on. I closed the window and then going down and then the dog just getting me. It seemed, okay, I don't get this. And sometimes I would choke on my lamb. I would choke on the lamb. Did you never choke in the night?
No.
Yeah, loads of times sort of thing. I've obviously done the wrong thing and choked on the lamb. So you get this picture of you going, which is kind of odd. And eventually I managed to make my way through it, but it just felt weirdly, I don't know what I did right, which is kind of a bit problematic, I think, in something like this. So I made it to the second one. And then you, like you said though, but before you you have to sit outside, don't you? You have to sit down and wait.
Yeah, really stupid logic that.
It's like, what? And you have to keep tapping. And you just think you're in a loop because you have to do it about 4 or 5 times. So after the third time, you just think you can, after the third time, you're like, oh, this is going to loop. I've obviously got to do something else. So I went back into the thing. I went all around, look, and what am I supposed to do? It seems like there's a lack of pointers. And that was my problem with playing this. I don't mind text adventures. They're okay. Not normally my bag, but I played quite a few of them. I used to muck around with the quill. Back in the C64 days, so I made some stuff on the quill, just because you know me, I like writing, so and so the quill was great because it was like, I can make text adventures. This is a bit of a laugh. So then the second part started, and again, you get in the coach, and then the old woman's there, and her face looks weird, sort of thing. But you have to examine her eyes.
Yeah.
But there's no pointer to her eyes. There's no, like, in the text, it would just go, and her eyes glow with a malevolence, and you're like, oh, okay, examine eyes. All right, I'll look at her eyes, look into her eyes, whatever. But there is none of that. And it's only at that point you get the three women vision, like you said, and one of them looks like Susie from Susie and the Banshees, or the banana armor on with green makeup. And I just woke up, and then and then you in that dream sequence you're feeling something's gone horribly wrong, and you have to wake up. Like this doesn't feel logical, and I think that's the problem I had with this text adventure game. Is it didn't feel like the logic to felt I'd like okay, and then when the coachman wouldn't let me on, I dropped the cross, and then he let me on, and then I was done for because you have to open. And then I was like, oh, you know what? It takes too much time to go through the, like you said, the to counter and fugue stuff, and just waiting to get back to that bit, and just enter. So it's okay. I mean, and it is weird that in this time frame we're looking at it and it gets a BBFC rating, which is not for marketing purposes at all. No, sir, not at all. No, it's not. But it's there. It's finished. It's an interesting curio, I think, is the way to describe this. And he will, Rod Pike does Frankenstein, doesn't he? Which is the next one.
Yeah, he does a few, don't they?
Says Frankenstein, I know, is the next one. But this one just feels like a first attempt, but it feels like it's adventure games. They need to point you, otherwise it's just trying anything, and you just get fed up, and you don't feel like you've hit on the solution. You just feel like you've looked on it. Yeah, and that's the problem I had with this. So it's all right, but it's just too many sort of inconsistencies and a bit of annoyances. And I think I got halfway through the second part and I never made it to the third one. I could have just loaded it up, I guess, because they're all singular loads, aren't they? So I could have given it a go if I'd want, and maybe I will give it a go at some point. But I think I'd had my fill of this, and it's okay. It got 59% in their adventure section, so that tells you it all. This is someone. Their adventure section, the White Wizard section, there's someone who is playing a lot of adventure games, clearly, and they only gave it 60%, so it didn't rate that highly. I think the gimmick of the visuals and everything was seen through quite quickly for the it only works once, and then it just becomes annoying.
Yeah, quite agree.
So there you go. That's Dracula, I guess. But like you, I'm a big fan of the original book. I really like the original book, the Bram Stoker novel. I think it's an excellent book, and So I think it's Dr. Seward, isn't it? By the way,
Seward,
doctor.
Yeah. I knew there was a doctor.
And
Renfield.
Yeah. Renfield, and is it Carfax? Not Carfax Abbey.
Carfax Abbey. That's
Carfax Abbey, and I can't remember what the hospital's called.
Yeah.
Not Karnstein. It's something weird.
No, not Count Karnstein.
Not Count Karnstein. Anyway, there you go. That's Dracula. It's all right. If you like text adventures, but we thought we'd give someone a bit of a difference because, hey ho, something to take our mind off the dross that's been in the rest of this episode. So there you go, that's Dracula for you. And that's, I think, our last game. That is our last game in this section. We do have a crapvert to look at. If you'd like to scroll your screen down to that crapvert.
Yeah, I can see it. Microgen again.
Microgen with a game called Cop Out.
With a new logo.
Yeah, so Graham, would you like to describe to us this Cop Out?
It's a bit of an odd one, isn't it? So game's called Cop Out. So you've got at the top, you've got kind of you've got the Cop Out title, which is Cop-Out. Then you've got the weird Microgen logo in the middle. At the bottom, you've got a police officer stood firing a gun, I hope, straight towards you, and then flanked either over his shoulders what look like sort of weird secret agents from a completely different genre. And he's superimposed over a city, which I think is meant to be like New York. He looks a bit like a New York cop. That looks like a New York cop outfit, except he's carrying a holster like a cowboy, which I don't think they would have it like that. And it's just a bit naff. There's no screen grabs of the game.
He's floating.
Yeah, he's floating over some kind of cloud. There's no indication of what this game's about. There's no screens on it. It tells you which platforms it's available on, and where it's available in terms of an address. There's literally nothing to go at. It's really crap. And I think he's meant to be holding a gun and firing it, which is fine, but it doesn't look like that. It looks like he's kind of cupping I don't know what he'd even describe that. It's
a sparkler.
Yeah, it's like he's just and he's meant to be aiming down the barrel of a gun. Why wouldn't you just have him aiming down the barrel of a gun? You don't need to have him shooting because it conveys nothing. It just looks like someone's punched him in the mouth, and it's or they didn't draw his mouth in, and someone coloured over it by accident. So it's not a advert that makes any sense. It's a true crapvert in the tradition that they've got a cityscape at the bottom, clearly just superimposed and hand-drawn
policeman over that, by the way. They've overshaded his trousers and his shirt, especially his shirt. It's super shaded. It's like crazy shades. It's like somebody went mad on the whole. You know what? That if he's wearing jeans, he'll need creases around the crotch. So they crotch shaded his jeans like crazy. So no, so he's got very well drawn legs and torso. That and the actual drawing of it in of itself is really well shaded and really quite good. Just falls apart with the holding of the gun. And he actually does have a Rusty Sheriff's badge. I'm just saying, he does have one on him. But it all falls apart when you look at the weird cloud secret agent type people in the background. Dubious that they look as well, because they, there's a look to them that's a bit dubious. I don't know. It's not really about anything.
Do you know what this reminds me of?
No.
It reminded me of the Mantronics advert.
Yeah. Similar sort of,
because it's that similar thing. It's the sort of the figure in the middle with the weird characters in the corner that seem to bear no relation to the thing in the middle.
I have a funny feeling that they've taken a still from the Police Academy movies of Tackleberry and just traced over it. Because that looks a bit like looks like a Tackleberry pose to me.
You might not be wrong.
And that's exactly the same cop outfit and same cap hat that they wear in that movie, because they don't wear real police outfits in the film. So maybe, but. I don't know. Just low-slung holsters on cops. I don't think that's going to happen, is it? No.
Do you think they're like sort of ghost cops of his, like they're advisors to him, like good cop, bad cop?
I don't know, but it doesn't make
on his shoulders.
None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. You don't know what that game is. You don't know what it's about. The logo isn't giving anything away. It's so bland and flat. It could be anything. It could literally be anything, that game, and nothing is given away. In fact, it's so clueless that I haven't got a clue. It doesn't even have a tagline to say "cop out," the game of, or it's avoided any of that. It's so obtuse that it's beyond the pale. It's literally so confused. It's about nothing. And the Microgen logo is a catastrophe. Whoever sanctioned that rebrand needs a boot with the ass. It's awful.
Yep.
No, I've got a funny feeling that was drawn by somebody below the age of 8.
It looks, it's weird, isn't it? It's a weird thing. It's also got like thought bubble on the bottom left of the Microgen. It's like the ghost on the left is thinking it.
And I didn't realise that Microgen was spelt with a K and not a C, but I guess it is. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If you want a copy, send your postal orders or checks to Unit 15, the Western Centre, Western Road, Bracknell, Berks. Off you go.
With no postcode.
And no price for. I guess they're all the same price. The Amstrad Spectrum Commodore is $8.95.
Unless you want the Amstrad disc.
Random. No Amstrad cassette. Oh, there's on cassette for that as well. So.
Yeah.
But if it's a single,
it's terrible. It's such a. When I was looking through the adverts, looking for one, it stood out to me because it's just crap.
We're going to end up playing it, I think, at some point, and it's going to be a load of arseholes. So
it's going to be a lot of tight-fitting jeans.
It is very, 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 very lots of crotch shading there. I admire that level of detail around crotch shading. That is dedication, because jeans are that is a very difficult area to shade correctly. And he hasn't overbulged. It's not overbulged it.
No, I'm just hoping he's got some potpourri in there.
Well, I would imagine he has. Yeah,
this is the potpourri episode.
It is.
Anyway, there you go. That's it. That's their crapverts. I couldn't find any charts. There was no charts in either Commodore User or CMVG for this month, so don't know what was number one in the thing. We'll just say that I don't know what was number one. Anything could be number one. Green
World
Beret.
Games.
World Games was number one. There you go. That's what we think was number one. So there you go. That's your top thingy. But right, I'm just gonna just give you the list. We've got there's just a shit ton of games coming for February 1987. It gets ridiculous. There's a total of 41. So we have to talk how we're going to actually try and deliver this lot. Whether it's a mammoth episode, split more, we don't know yet. We'll come to it anyway. But we've got things like 1943. We just had 1942. Arctic Fox, Avenger, Bomb Jack 2, Breakthrough, Championship Wrestling, Cobra, Defcom, Destroyer, Dragon's Lair 2, Firelord, Gauntlet, Harvey Headbanger, Heartland, Highlander, Howard the Duck, Hyperball, Infodroid, It's a Knockout, Judge Dredd, Legend of Cage, Light Force, Los Angeles SWAT, Molecule Man, Paperboy, Park Patrol, Psychastria, Scooby-Doo, Sigma 7, Skyrunner, Space Harrier, Starglider, Storm, Surf Champ, Tarzan, 10th Frame, Terra Cresta, They Stole a Million, The Vikings, Xeno, and Xevious, or Zevious, however you pronounce that.
That's a few then.
That's a lot of games. So we will play all them, so you don't have to. We will play them all. How we actually bring them to you is still something that we are debating.
TBC.
Yeah, so, but we, over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it's going to be, we will get through all them. So, there's a lot coming, and that's just the start. We're just starting 1987.
Yep.
One thing, obviously, that's up and running now, I'll just add it here if you wish to get in contact. But if you wish to sign up to our Patreon, then please do. Just search for Zapped to the Past Patreon and you'll find us. You get some cool stuff. If you fancy supporting the podcast and helping us out, that would be coolio. We would really like that, just to help us with the cost of the ongoing stuff that's going on. And so that's that. I'll leave, obviously, Graham will say all the rest in the outro bits, and I don't think we've got much more to add. I think that's it for this drudgery of an episode. Hopefully we'll have much better games next month, but who knows? We don't know. We'll see what they're like. You got anything you want to add on that note?
No. I think let's just...
I'm not even going to ask to sort of pick a good, pick the highlight game from this, because there's nothing I would add to any list.
No, it's just, I think
really.
I'm going to write January off a little bit, and let's, we know that... the next episode is going to be feature-packed with plenty of games to really have a chew on. So,
I
think there's going to be some interesting debate in some of there. I'm quite interested to see how some of these revisit, like Dragon's Lair 2 and things like that. I'm quite curious to see how they replay after all this time. So it'd be quite interesting stuff.
In amongst all that, though, isn't interesting that there's no gold medal.
No, a couple of sizzlers in there. No, and that surprises me that...
Two of them are adventures, though.
Well, Dragon's Lair 2 isn't a sizzler, but Gauntlet is. I can see there being some controversy there. We'll leave that for the podcast.
Yeah, we'll see, because I haven't played it for a while, so we'll see. All right, I think on that note, then we'll call it an episode. So, as ever, I have been Adrian Mills,
and I have been Graham Raddings,
and you have been listening to Zapped to the Past, and we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.